Alrighty, hello and welcome, Day One Patch Podcast, episode 520. It's a big one. It's a big one.
A big one indeed.
It happened.
I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Matt Lawrence is here.
I am.
Tim Spence is here.
I'm not.
Resident Nintendo guy, because me and Matt are not Nintendo guys.
Sort of.
Matt, you were a Sega kid, right?
I was actually a PC kid, but I played a lot of Sega games on my computer.
I was I guess Game Boy kid, kind of Nintendo kid. But what did I play? I played mostly Pokemon, was like mostly the Nintendo game I played, but I played a lot of Harry Potter, and that's about it.
You played one game?
No, there's a bunch of like random smaller games I played and stuff. Nothing of note, really.
What do they call it? The cousin games. Where it's like it was never anything first party, and it was always like the games you'd only ever play at your cousin's house.
It was like I played like Sabrina the Teenage Witch game. Like it was just like weird, random little games because I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't in the loop. I wasn't seeing what was hot. You know, Pokemon for some reason. I guess just because I like Pokemon, that my parents got me that game. But anyway, last week I heard you guys talking about what host is.
Yeah,
and like if I like stopped doing the podcast or something, I think technically we're all co-hosts. I'm just like the lead host because I bring us in, I read the topics, I get us through the segments and stuff, but we're all co-hosts.
I think I'm
you know what
more.
I mean?
If any of us is a guest, though, I think it's me.
But you've been on so long now that you're no longer a guest. I think you're a co-host.
But the show goes on if I'm not here. It's like you guys. It doesn't really go on if Ryan's not here. You know what I mean?
Well, you guys recorded last week without me.
But like,
or do you mean if you said I'm done doing the podcast, guys? See you later. Me and Matt would keep going.
It would keep going. Yeah. If you and Matt weren't recording, like I'm not going to record on my own. You know?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to host it.
All right. Well, there you go. You're a guest.
At the very most, I'm a co-host. Definitely not a full host.
Yeah. All right.
Well, the hypothetical, Ryan, was also that you didn't leave. Like it's a bit of nuance. Like you didn't leave. You just said, I don't want to be the host anymore. Like I just want to be like
out of
more
the hosting like position.
Like yeah, so like you're present each week or each episode, but you're like taking a back seat or more of a back seat, I guess. Right, so like if somebody steps up to like take in on your role, like what is your position now at that point?
Co-host.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know.
Probably.
I mean, it's definitely just like nuance of this. You know what I mean? It's not like
it doesn't really matter. It's just like I think just me being host makes the most sense because I'm managing the show.
Because you're the host of the most.
And then, but I'm also a co-host as well, though, because I'm co-hosting it with Matt.
Yeah.
And then Tim is the long-standing guest.
Yeah.
I'd still say Tim's a co-host if we're all co-hosts.
The guest with tenure.
The guest with tenure, yeah. Also, Ryan, I found out what game you were playing. Sabrina the Teenage Witch Potion Commotion on Game Boy Advance.
Is that what it was called?
I'm looking right at it. It's a platformer released in 2002 by Ubisoft.
Yeah. Game Boy Advance, you said?
Yeah, GBA, that's right.
And what is it based on? No, I always played the Game Boy Color one, Matt.
There's a Game Boy Color version of it.
Sabrina the Animated Series Zapped, it was called.
Oh my god.
There was more than one?
Oh, hell yeah.
All right.
Well, I don't know where Sabrina the Teenage Witch originates. I know there was a TV show that I watched back in the 90s or early 2000s, whenever that was.
Yep.
Right. I don't know if it's based on that or not.
Probably.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, Potion Commotion is based off the show. The one I'm talking about was not. It's just a thing.
Well, there is Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Like I thought there was an animated series for it. No, though, right? Or no?
There might have been.
Because the cat is called Salem. And the cat is called Salem in the live action show.
But that might be part of just the story of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I just posted the game cartridge in the chat there.
I'm on the wiki right here, and it says that Sabrina Spellman and Salem are both playable characters.
Yeah.
Oh, sign me up. You know what else you can sign me up for? A little podcast about the Switch 2.
Look at that segue. Should you point out segues? That's the question. There's people who
every
point them
time,
out.
yeah.
Every time they're driving down the street, that's right.
Every time, yeah.
But what if we were cool about it? What if we just went like, that's right, Tim. The Switch 2 was just shown off at the Nintendo Direct this week, you know?
No, every time you have to bring attention to it. Make it really awkward.
Okay. I will make note of that as my hosting duties.
Scribble that on the back of your hand.
Yeah, the Switch 2. It was already announced, and we got more details during this Nintendo showcase, or what do they call it? Direct. Nintendo Direct. We're just gonna kind of go through, I guess, the bare bones of kind of what was announced about the console itself. And this was brought to us by Mobile Syrup. However, you can just watch it on the Nintendo Direct on Nintendo's YouTube channel. But I guess the biggest point, at least listed here, is that it's 4K 60 when docked, which is pretty interesting to see. But it also has a 7.9-inch 1080p mini LCD screen that supports HDR and up to 120 FPS. So that's, I guess, when it's undocked, right? That you'll have that screen and then 120 FPS on games that support it, which I think is probably a key thing.
A big asterisk,
to be that.
Although a lot of indie games, like if it's like a platformer that's like pixel art, I would imagine could take advantage of that.
Well, I'm curious. It does have backwards compatibility with Switch. I'm wondering if those old Switch games could actually get a boost from this, because if it is more powerful hardware, it should be able to run those Switch games a lot better.
Yeah.
Likely would like hold the target. Like if the target's 30 and like the Switch was struggling to get to 30, maybe it would be a consistent 30.
Mm-hmm. So the Switch 2 has an adjustable U-shaped kickstand, which me and Tim were actually just talking about. We really enjoy the OLED kickstand, and I'm curious to see how this, what appears to be thinner kickstand, feels like. But I'm sure they've tested it. I'm sure it's just as durable and usable as the previous one. But I just like the bigger flap on the OLED model.
I mean, my Switch, which is not the OLED, still has the little piece
tiny
of gum.
guy. Yeah. I can't believe that one.
Yeah, that one's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's thin plastic. Anyway,
internal storage. It now comes with, I think the original had 32 gigabytes, or was it 64? I can't remember what it had.
No, 32.
But it now comes with 256 gigabytes of internal storage. 8 times what the original Switch supported. So you could do the reverse mathematics on that, Matt.
Yeah, 32.
Okay.
Now here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, is that MKBHD mentioned this, that the games today are also taking up more space. So whereas like it sounds impressive to go from 32 to 256, I mean, I just installed a 157 gigabyte Call of Duty update.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's not as impressive necessarily as we think.
Yeah, something to be cognizant about.
They showed a little animation when announcing the storage size, and they had like a little like box so that all the game cartridges fit in. They're like, here's all the games you could fit on a Switch like regular or whatever. And then Switch 2, and it shows like a bunch of games getting ported in there. A lot of them were Switch original games.
Yeah.
They weren't all Switch 2 games getting ported into this little box.
Yeah. Which they are obviously going to be bigger, like you say, right? But because they're not loading 4K textures on the Switch 1.
I heard that Cyberpunk 2077 is coming to Switch 2, and it will take up 25% of the internal storage on Switch 2.
Yeah, it's the 64 gigs on Kart.
Mm-hmm. It will support micro SD Express cards, though, and that Express is very important. It does not support the same micro SD cards that the original Switch supported. So you won't be able to use those on your new Switch 2. However, you will be able to transfer over all your data to your new console.
Yeah,
when you get that.
And there's big ones coming too. Like Lexar said that they're looking at making one specifically for the Switch 2. That's 1 terabyte. Yeah, so it's quite large.
It's gonna be pricey.
Yeah, but also adding a terabyte is quite a lot. Like adding another 256 would be enough. I would guess maybe it depends on these Switch games, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Any Express cart right now is expensive though. It's unfortunate, but it is necessary. Like the speeds that they want to read data from those cartridges and the games and stuff, like it has to be Express, otherwise it can't pull the data fast enough. So
it's the same as like no one really complained about the faster storage speeds on Xbox and PlayStation, and those I mean, PlayStation made a custom SSD, for Christ's sake,
Yeah.
The 2 new magnetic Joy-Cons are kind of interesting. So the actual buttons on the Joy-Con itself, that like you would do with like your index fingers when you're holding the Joy-Con as a controller, those are metal buttons, and those are the magnets themselves. And so it just magnetizes to the Switch screen. And then on the back, there's like it's not like a button that releases it. It's like a little piece of plastic will push out and then push the Joy-Con away from the body so you can pull it away.
Yep.
Which is kind of interesting.
Using simple physics, using levers to help you fight those magnets.
Yeah.
I thought of like one thing that I was a little bit concerned about. So okay, the magnets are in the actual tablet, and then those buttons are metal. They magnet to it. That thing just pushes away, like you said. Mm-hmm. But a lot of force could probably just rip it apart without doing that. Now, obviously, through normal use, that's probably not a problem. What happens when you're in a subway and someone just wants to steal your Switch 2? You're holding two Joy-Cons, grab it, gone. just like people with their Beats, where like people will wait beside the door and like someone's standing beside the door, and then as the doors close, grab the Beats, and then that's it. Like they got some Beats now. So like I wonder if this is going to be an issue where people are going to steal Switch 2 like tablets.
I mean, are they stealing Switch 1s like this? Is this an existing problem? Because it would be the same situation.
Well, no, because the clips, like they need to be like, don't you need to click the button?
You need to actually push the clips in to remove the Joy-Cons, and then they need to slide out through the top.
I was just thinking,
but you have that big of a problem.
I'm pretty sure that I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that you have to pull that like lever on the back of the Joy-Cons to the one that like pushes away from the console. I'm pretty sure you have to push that to release it. I think there's some sort of locking mechanism too. Like you can't take the Joy-Cons off without pulling that lever.
I think they're solely held on by magnets.
That's the way that in the Direct they have that like little animation of the person holding the dock and holding the Joy-Con, and they're like trying to pull them apart and they can't. And I don't know if that's just up to magnet strength.
They talked about how, and I'm no magnetologist here, but they talked about how it creates either a magnetic circuit, I guess. So I don't know if that's like a stronger connection than just a regular magnet.
Electromagnet?
If it's actually like sending power to that magnet.
That would make a difference. Like that would totally make a difference.
Right.
Obviously, what I'm saying is a very niche issue. I'm just saying that obviously normal use, the magnets, whether they're electrical or whatever,
although
are fine. But
if you're sitting there on the subway playing your Switch 2, and then just someone just grabs the screen and yanks it, and you're just left there holding the
Joy-Cons.
Yeah. Oh no.
Which at that point, like if somebody wants to steal your Switch and you're using it in handheld mode, they're not going to sit there and wait for it to become disconnected from the Joy-Cons. They're just going to steal the whole thing.
They could probably steal it out of your hands normally.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to worry about magnets coming apart. They'll just take the Joy-Cons too.
I know we didn't want a lot of tangents in this show, but I just remember when the first iPads were launched, there was a guy who bought iPads, not even for himself, for friends, and he had them in a bag. And at the time, Apple's bags had like a rope, like a plastic rope handle. And he was walking out of the mall with his iPads, and some guy grabbed them and yanked them away from him, and the ropes wrapped around his pinky and tore the skin off.
Oh, God.
Nice.
This man lost his pinky because he was buying iPads for not even himself.
Oh.
Yeah. It still scars me to this day. It's just gross. I feel bad for that guy wherever he is.
Anyway.
Yeah, the new Joy-Cons also feature bigger trigger buttons, and they previously rumored mouse-like functionality. The latter feature means that you can put the Joy-Cons on a flat surface and scroll around it like a mouse. And apparently you can use this on your jeans, as we were also discussing beforehand. Because we were wondering, like, what surfaces can you use this on, and how do you use it when you're out and about when you're at your rooftop parties?
Mm-hmm,
you want to still be able to, like, if they have a glass table, you got to use your jeans or something. Who knows?
Yep, likely.
Mm-hmm. The new C button. Now, I think people were excited about this because, correct me if I'm wrong, the C button was a button on previous Nintendo consoles, right?
C stick.
There was the C stick, which was the right joystick originally on the GameCube.
Well, it's now a button, and it brings up GameChat, which allows you to talk with friends and family while playing through a built-in mic on the Switch 2. On the current Switch, voice chat was limited to the Switch Online mobile app. You can also share your game screen with the C button. But they also announced, I don't have it here, but they also had a camera accessory that you can now plug into.
Yep.
Because the Switch 2 now has two USB-C ports, one on the top, one at the bottom, so you can be docked and still use like a camera or other accessories. Or you can charge it when it's just on tabletop mode.
Tabletop mode, yeah. Man, I noticed that in the first reveal, the first look at the hardware. I didn't see anybody else talking about the fact that there were two USB-C ports. And I was like, this is huge.
About it, didn't we?
Maybe I'm saying the same thing I said back then too. It was like nobody was talking about it, but that's like huge because lots of people wanted to charge their Switches while it's in tabletop mode, but they couldn't because the port was on the bottom. It's like trying to charge your Apple mouse where the port's on the bottom of the mouse. It's like, I can't use my mouse while it's charging.
Yeah.
So that's a good feature. Thank you, Nintendo, for thinking about that.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just kind of go over what were your thoughts on the whole overall Nintendo Direct, Tim? What did you think about this one?
Yeah, so I watched it on stream on Wednesday morning, and it was when I finished watching it through the first time, I was like, that is far and away the best Nintendo Direct we've had in a long time. Like, there were a lot of really big announcements. They went into a lot of details about a lot of features of the Switch. Like, they actually showed off more of it and had more like information available for it than I was expecting. I thought they would be kind of like close to the chest because it's not coming out yet, but they showed off like release dates. They showed off a bunch of new games, or at least teased a bunch of new things. And then since in the days since, right, they've had like their Nintendo Treehouse streams, and they've gone into more detail about different things they showed off. There were a lot of really big announcements for me personally, games wise, that I was like, that's so cool that they're making this. It's only, you know, once the high has worn off that you're like, okay, now that we can sit here and think about this critically, we can start to actually acknowledge some of the downsides as well.
Yeah, like I mean, like this one felt really like well paced. I don't know if you got the same impression. Like it was good that we saw like a mix of like the game, the hardware, the game, the hardware.
Yeah, it flew by. It was long too, over an hour.
Yeah, and I liked how they would be like, oh hey, like these are like, it was very clear. It was like, now we're going to talk about our partner, you know, our third party partner games.
Yep.
Hey, we're at the end of that now. So it's not like you're like, oh, I hope there's another trailer. It's just like I like how structured and paced and spread out it was.
Yeah.
Do we want to go over some of the games that were announced?
Yeah.
So the first one was Mario Kart World, and obviously, kind of like a lot of people are comparing it to Forza Horizon, where you just have like an open map and you can just roam around and jump into races here and there and kind of drop in, drop out kind of deal. What were your overall impressions of Mario Kart World? I'm not a big Mario Kart guy myself, so just curious what Mario Kart people think.
I thought they were starting off very strong with that, because people have been clamoring for a new Mario Kart. This is the first new Mario Kart in 10 years. I think a lot of people forget that Mario Kart 8 was a Wii U game, and it wasn't until they ported it to the Switch and made it the deluxe, air quotes, version that that game like quickly became like, it's still, I'm pretty sure, far and away the most sold Nintendo Switch game. So it's a big IP for Nintendo, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really interesting new features with it, like that you can grind on the rails and you can drive on the walls, and there's a bunch of new playable characters. Something that's
I saw that lady from Odyssey, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, is she playable in 8 Deluxe now? I think she is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she is. But yeah, she's in World as well now. Along with a bunch of other characters. And it seems to me like they showed off a bunch of characters in the gameplay like trailers for World that weren't actually selectable at like playable demo events that people have played. So there's speculation that some of those characters are unlockable characters.
Or are they going to add them down the line? Did they ever
or
do
they
that
could add
before?
them in DLC. Yeah, like they have added characters in like updates and stuff. But yeah, it's like a lot of people are calling it like Mario Kart Horizon, because they're like taking a page out of Forza's book and like made it all one big interconnected world. And the fact that you drive like the courses that you like race on now are like physically existing in the world. And then you drive, when you're doing a Grand Prix, from one course to another, you actually physically drive the road from one course to another. So that's super cool. Like I have played a lot of Mario Kart on the Switch, on the Wii U and the Switch, and I kind of like, to me those games are like solved games. Like I know where the shortcuts are on every map, and I know like what the best car build for my playstyle is, and it's like sort of min-maxy. I feel like there's a lot more opportunity for like paths to take through courses based on what they've shown off in some of the gameplay demos. And whether this is like a good thing or a bad thing, I don't think I'll necessarily miss it too much. Is like they've gotten rid of the kart customization feature, so you don't individually pick the body and the wheels and the glider anymore. You just pick one of like X number of preset vehicles. But I kind of get why they did it that way, because each car now has a driving mode, a boat mode, like a water mode, and then the like wings out flying mode. So I think that would have been a lot more hellish to model all the possible combinations of like car pieces, and then trying to make like a boat version of everything. I
think I prefer that, because I didn't really like choosing all those things in 8.
You can like see all the different stats as well. So like theoretically, for the min-maxers out there is possibly like a best car. But you know, we'll see. Maybe there'll be a best car and a best quad and a best bike, and then it's going to be the same as it always was. But or since the Wii days anyway. But yeah, the interconnectivity is really cool. The fact that you can kind of free roam, drive around the entire world, everything's just open right off the bat, so you can just drive around with your friends and you can go look for secrets. Apparently, I think I saw in an IGN video they did on it that there's special coins and stuff that are hidden around the map that they weren't sure what they were spent on, but they were collectibles. So it's possible there's some sort of like customizations, maybe outfits or different colors for the carts and things that you can possibly redeem these coins for. Which I would be a huge fan of. Having unlockable stuff just through gameplay and not through microtransactions would be super sick. But maybe we'll see a mix of both. Who knows? Lord knows. Also, Mario Kart 8 made a ton of money for Nintendo in the long run.
Something to do in that open world too, right? You don't just want it to be empty roads and whatnot. You want mysteries. You want just things to discover, collectibles.
And there's other cars. There's other cars driving around on the roads too. So there's like, NPCs you can mess with. There's like they showed off in the Treehouse stream. There was like a city they went to, and there were like, Toads and Yoshis walking around on the roads and stuff, and other cars driving. Like, there's lots of ways you can like interact with the world.
I don't know if you guys mentioned it, but is there a way to just jump to the race? Because like,
some
people are going to be like, man, I do not want to do the open world stuff.
Yeah, you can do that too. You can fast travel, and there's a photo mode, which was shown off in the direct, but they showed off a little bit more in the Treehouse stream, which standard functionality for photo mode in a game. So I think there's a lot there. I think people are. I mean, we can get into it later, of course, but people are speculating like, is there enough there that it justifies the price hike? But yeah,
is this like a big jump for Mario Kart, like in comparison to other entries? I don't really like follow Mario Kart too much, but like it feels like the car building, I guess, was like a decent jump. And now like this is like, I don't know, another one. Like, would you consider this like equivalent or better, or what do you think?
You mean like gameplay wise, mechanics wise?
Yeah, like in terms of like going from one Mario Kart to the next. So like I guess Mario Kart 8, I guess, was the last one, and then like to Mario Kart World. Like, is this a good jump, like a standard jump in features that you would see when you like go up each iteration of Mario Kart?
Yeah, I think so. Because every game always had its like gimmick, right? 8, it was like the anti-gravity stuff, like driving, like the courses would go upside down and stuff like that, and you'd have the parts of the roads where they'd like go up and then do like a U-turn and come back down to the ground. So like that was the gimmick of that one. Mario Kart 7, I think, was the first one to introduce the gliders. I think that was on the 3DS, the first one you could like fly in. So like they were always adding some new thing, and when they first showed off Mario Kart World, I was like, what's the gimmick for this game? And so it's a lot. It's boat, it's your car turning into boats and flying, and then it's also the open world aspect. So like I think base game content wise, there's a lot more there. It really seems like they're putting a lot into it to start, and it's also a potentially good launching point for adding more content. They showed the map as well, which appears to be kind of like this island. And I was just wondering, like, if they're going to add more courses, how do they expand the world to include them without going like underground versus in the sky? Do you just add new chunks of landmass onto this island?
Yeah. You don't think they can do that?
Yeah, like I think they can, and they'll probably like expand the map or make it like zoom out more, and then you see more like smaller islands dotted around and stuff. But I just wonder their strategy there for doing it like in a seamless way.
I wonder if they'll do like a ferry system, like you drive onto a ferry and then it takes you to another island or something like that.
Yeah, but if it has a load screen, that kind of eliminates the point of it being open world.
Yeah, there is that.
Because you wouldn't need a ferry when you can just drive into the water,
I think like this game is going to have like I mean, this kind of makes sense, I guess, but I feel like this game is going to be like the testing ground on whether like open world remains in future Mario Karts, right? Or like whether open world like works in Mario Kart.
Yeah, based on the feedback, it seems like it will.
It looked cool. Yeah, well, in particular for me, like I don't know if I would rip around the world a bunch, but for me it'd be like if it was like us three going to hop on. And it's like, okay, we're going to hop online instead of me like jumping into a race and like kind of dedicating some time to that. I might just like rip around the world while I'm waiting. So I would kind of like treat it like a glorified lobby rather than just like, I would just be like sitting in Mario Kart at the main menu and just like be scrolling my phone, waiting for everyone to join up.
And the other big feature is that races can have 24 people in them. They have a feature that's kind of like, it's called Knockout Tour, I think, where it starts with 24 people, and then like the top 16 qualify, and then in the next race the top 8 qualify, and then in the next race the top, however many qualify. So it's like sort of battle royale-y, where it's like if you're not towards the top, you get eliminated and left behind.
That's pretty cool.
Like Fall Guys, I guess, is another one it could be similar to. Yeah, so like they have different game modes. They're very clearly trying new things with this one. And all of the people who have done like a hands-on gameplay first impressions seem to be pretty glowing. So it must also feel good to play too.
I just realized I put the wrong Nintendo Direct games list.
Yeah, you did.
In the I updated it. It should have the
there we go.
One from April. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of go through the list. I don't know.
This document goes through like the first party stuff, and then there's like a bullet list of all the third party down below.
There's Kirby, I guess. Kirby Air Riders. Sorry. Racing game. Another racing game.
Yeah, the sequel to the one from the GameCube. This was like far and away my like favorite announcement from the entire Direct.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I played a lot of Kirby Air Ride on the GameCube, so Air Riders sequel like 20 years later is super, super cool.
Wait, the first one was Air Ride?
Kirby Air Ride.
Air Riders?
Yeah. Directed by Masahiro Sakurai, who is the creator of Kirby originally, and Smash Bros. And the original Kirby Air Ride.
Oh, wow.
And Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS, which apparently is like one of the best 3DS games ever if you can get over the camera controls.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Wild, which there's a typo there on this IGN article.
Oh, really? It says Tears of the Wild? That's
Tears
funny.
of the Wild are getting Nintendo Switch 2 editions at launch. So you'll be able to, I guess, hopefully update those, right?
There's an upgrade. There's an upgrade
thing,
kit. It is, yes. You have to pay for them. It's called like an upgrade kit or something. They said.
Okay.
So it's very similar to the other games we've seen going from like PS4 to PS5, where you have to pay. I think it's up to the person, but it's like $10 or whatever it is. So I don't know how much they are.
How worth it is. Like, is it noticeably different?
Well, the Tears of the Kingdom one will allow you to Tears of the Kingdom, not Tears of the Kingdom, will allow you to what was it? It was like they like share your creations. So like they showed like a weird like I don't know tank machine or whatever that someone had made, and then they like made a QR code thing because Nintendo's doing the companion app thing like 2 gens later. And then like you can send the QR code to like your friend, and then they can put your tank in the game. So now whether that's going to be in the Switch version, I don't know. But it'll certainly be in the Switch 2 version. So like that's something.
Zelda Notes app.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Mm-hmm. So it's one of 2 things on the Nintendo Switch app aside from Splatoon 3 like lobby chat or whatever the other one is.
You know what though? I think that's actually probably the better way to do it. Have your own Nintendo app. And then all the games just add apps to that app.
Yeah, I do like that.
Rather than this smorgasbord of
a different app for every game.
Yeah, because like that's going to, I think, reduce the amount of people who are actually going to go seek it out. If you just have it in one spot, maybe they'll do it,
And then you can have it sort of this like, semi-advertising for other games that also that app has, functionality with.
Yeah.
That was a good feature. Like it's a shame to have this like quality of life content locked behind an app, because like some people are going to be playing Tears of the Kingdom and they won't have a cell phone, so they have to go get like mom or dad's cell phone, right, and try to use this like companion app, which is kind of a pain in the ass. But overall, I think like the vibe that I'm getting from the Switch 2 in multiple facets that we might address in this particular episode is that the Switch 2 seems to be targeting a slightly older audience anyway. So with it being like a more premium experience than the Switch 1. So
actually, I wanted to make note of that. We heard a lot of rumors about a Switch Pro, and I'm almost wondering, did the Switch 2 is it just the Switch Pro? Did they rework it or something?
I mean, the devs claim that they rebuilt it from the ground up, which is a phrase that I desperately need tech to stop regurgitating because I hate it so much.
You didn't what you're saying is they need to rebuild that statement from the ground up.
Rebuild anything from the ground up. Everything is an iteration off of the previous iteration.
Yeah. They definitely didn't start from like zero. Like they threw out all their plans and said we're going to design it from the ground up. No.
We're going to redesign this thing. We're going to start over. We're going to think outside the box, and it looks exactly the same as the Switch one. It's the same form factor.
It's got 2 Joy-Cons.
Yeah,
it's the same thickness, isn't it?
Exactly the same. 13.9 millimeters or whatever.
Yeah, you know what though? You are right, because like usually kids' toys are like more colorful, and that original Switch released with the sort of like the orange or the red and the blue color Joy-Cons. This one's a very muted, like kind of like a slate or maybe black.
It's a classic black tech with the accent colors.
It looks like a Pro model.
Yeah, it really does. And like that's, not that like kids can't use a muted colored. Like kids use like iPads, and iPads aren't coming in like neon blue or something.
But when you make it colorful right off the bat, it screams kid friendly.
Yeah, for kids. Yeah.
So are they banking off the kids who grew up on Switch maybe to now might be teenagers or older and buying a Switch 2?
Yeah, I think at least a little bit, for sure. Yeah.
They also didn't show any kids during the presentation. Now that I think
that was another
was quite
thing
a lot
that I touched
a lot of
on.
live action actors like.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about when I was watching through it earlier in the week. Was there were no kids, and so I think that is on purpose, and they're showing it. And then any of the videos they've shown additionally on their YouTube channel, like supplementally other promo things they're putting out. The only thing that had kids in it was showing a family situation when it's parents and kids. But anybody who was clearly supposed to be the owner of that Switch was a young adult at least.
Yeah.
There are enhancements to the parental controls though app. So there are still considerations. Like I think Nintendo knows even if a Nintendo Switch kid, I guess, has grown up and had a kid, they may be like, okay, I'll get my kid a Switch 2 kind of thing.
Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is getting a Nintendo Switch 2 edition with mouse controls and quality and performance modes. So it's going to actually support 4K 60 HDR, and the performance mode will be, my page just reloaded. Performance mode will be 120 frames per second, 1080. So that's kind of interesting. And getting the mouse support. I don't know what the mouse support does with that game or not.
It's like a shooter.
Yeah, it's camera controls. So movement is Joy-Con, and then aiming and firing is mouse. Okay. And when I saw that, it made me wonder, if we're going to have a Splatoon, for example, or some other competitive shooter on Switch, even COD maybe, who knows, are they going to separate people playing mouse controls from controller controls?
Is this mouse as accurate as a real mouse?
I don't think so. Okay. Reports have been saying it's not as good as a high DPI mouse. So, or at the very least, a mouse that maybe most people would be used to these days.
Right. Yeah.
It's a bit gimmicky, but every Nintendo thing has its gimmick, right? So,
Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Starcrossed World.
Starcrossed World, yeah. So the Switch game, the Switch Kirby game, exploration platformer, is getting more content on the Switch 2 version.
So these are all just updates to their old Switch games.
Yeah.
Super Mario Party Jamboree also getting an expanded version on Switch 2 with mouse controls.
Yep, for some of the mini games.
Actually, Mario Party, that probably has a lot of uses for a mouse.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get a WarioWare game that'll use it a lot too.
They also had the the little speech bubble webcam view if you have the Switch 2 camera as well.
Oh, right. Yeah, so they can see you suffering as you're losing your Mario Party game.
Yep. That feature would actually probably be pretty funny for the sake of coming from the content creation perspective. I feel like that little bubble of your face being in the game could make for some interesting interactions and stuff.
I have my Switch case open on my desk, and my cat is trying to lay in it.
Okay.
My cat is much larger than the Switch case.
Get on it,
may
Nintendo.
Fit in the Switch 2 case.
But she just wants to be on it. She doesn't care what it is. She wants to be on it.
Smells like you.
She's happy. It barely smells like me. I barely use that thing. Pokemon Legends. Now you tell me this is Z through Alpha, or
I think it's just called
Alpha.
I think it's just called ZA. I might be wrong.
Well, what they put a dash there?
I don't know.
I guess they don't want me to say ZA. So it's,
the Pokemon Legends ZA
Pizza.
Yeah. It's getting a Nintendo Switch edition, Nintendo 2 Switch edition, Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Sorry.
There you go. First try.
Improved resolution and frame rate, and Lord knows those Pokemon games need it, eh?
I wonder how Scarlet and Violet will run on the Switch 2. Probably at least better than the Switch 1.
Just crash. They're not compatible.
Actually, that's a good question. Are we going to see improvements to games that don't get a version for the Switch 2.
I would imagine so, right?
Because in PS5 or PS4 Pro and PS5 Pro, they added on a feature that would give enhancements to games that didn't fully support it. It's not like it just automatically got better because you were playing on better hardware. Because I think these games are made for the hardware they're on and not necessarily unlocked like a PC game is.
Yeah. It's a good question. I don't know if we've seen any confirmation for that.
The highly anticipated Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. It's an interactive and fun way to learn more about the new console and everything it can do. It features gameplay experiences and models of the Switch 2 and its Joy-Cons that teach players in a fun way. It'll be available as a paid digital title at launch of Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah, so it's Astro's Playroom, but you have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of the few Switch 2 exclusives.
Yeah, and like when I first saw it, that it was listed as a paid, download from the eShop on that first release trailer, I was like, wait, why is this paid? Why are we paying for this? And the one justification I was trying to think of, not for the paid part, but I was like, maybe they didn't want to put it on everyone's consoles because they didn't want it taking up space unnecessarily. That people would have to then either uninstall or just work around it. But in that sense, just put it on the eShop for free. Why is it? It's listed at 990 yen, which converts to about $6 American, which is even still too much. But
that makes it more bizarre. It's so cheap that why didn't they just give it away for free?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
And yet it's do they really want that $6 that badly from the 10 people who are going to download it?
Yeah. One person will buy it and then they'll upload it all to YouTube and then there you go.
You think they got the wrong lesson from Astrobot? Astrobot was a free game.
Astro's Playroom.
Excuse me. Astro's Playroom was a free game.
Yep.
But then they made a paid game that won Game of the Year.
Yep.
At the Game Awards, where they're like,
let's just cut out the middleman.
We can sell these games to people.
And we'll sell the first part. It's not why Playroom did well. It's not why people liked it.
Yeah.
People liked it because it was charming and it was free.
Yeah. Drag Cross Drive or Drag
I think it's just Drag Drive.
What are they doing with these freaking...
It's a very common thing in Japanese naming schemes for games, is that if it has an X, you just don't include it. Hunter x Hunter, the anime, Spy Family,
okay,
Drag Drive. You don't say the X.
It's an online 3v3 basketball, but wheelchair basketball.
Yeah, but also kind of like Rocket League a bit because you can go off of ramps and do tricks and stuff.
Right. And this one also has the mouse support, and we saw people using both Joy-Cons in mouse controller mode and swiping as if they were actually moving the wheels on a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Sounds tiring. Sounds exhausting.
It's going to be this game's Wii Sports, but instead of getting your lights knocked out by Mike or whatever the boxing guy is on the Wii, it's you're trying to dunk and drag drive.
Imagine though someone in a wheelchair coming home after a long day,
wheeling themselves around, and now they got to do it again.
Yeah.
They were like, I like the representation in the game, but goddamn, man, why'd you have to make it tiring again? Yeah.
Nintendo GameCube games are coming exclusively to Switch 2 via Nintendo Switch Online, which is their subscription service. Is that right?
Yeah.
These classic games will begin launching when the Switch 2 is released, and it will start with The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, F-Zero, GX, and Soul Calibur 2. That's an interesting
the
one.
best Soul Calibur
2? Oh, really?
Yeah,
is it?
It was on the GameCube. That had a unique version that Link was in that one, that he wasn't in the other versions of Soul Calibur on PlayStation and Xbox or whatever.
Nintendo will also be releasing a brand new wireless GameCube controller that can be used to play these titles. Does that have the C stick? It has the C stick. Now what are we gonna do? We got a C button and a C stick?
Yep.
Oh my god.
But I'm sure actually let's think about it. You could probably use GameChat while you're playing the emulators. So yeah, how do you pull that up? Maybe you hit the home button.
Frame rates when playing those GameCube games.
Maybe you have to pull up GameChat through a menu instead of a dedicated button. Yeah, maybe the C stick clicks. That'd be cool.
Just wiggle it. Wiggle the C stick to activate GameChat.
Oh god, it's like playing Skate 3. You have to input the certain movement combos to pull off different. Yeah.
Less to the C stick to open GameChat.
This controller also is exclusive to people who have it a Switch Online or something, right? They mentioned it was exclusively available to a certain group.
You can't just buy this controller?
I don't know. It was
really?
It says it said it on the Switch 2 Direct. I think it's exclusive to Switch 2 Online or something like that.
I wonder, do you think it would be feasible? Now, maybe it isn't. Maybe that's why they don't do this. But like a lot of people want, or at least there's a desire for older controllers, either for your retro consoles or whatever. Would it be worth it to actually produce them and even like charge like a lot of money because you're not making millions of them? You know, what if it's like $200 but just have them for people who want a new controller for like their NES or something?
I mean, it would be a cool niche item, and like you could charge a pretty penny, and maybe even put like modern features in it, like a Bluetooth chip or something. Like it'd be pretty cool to have like an original Xbox controller on my computer.
Right.
But the thing is, then you're then promoting emulation.
Okay.
And then it's like, well,
that's fair. Nintendo doesn't want to do that unless it's them. Yeah. So just to clear up that point, though, there is on the top of the controller, there are new buttons added on the wireless one. So there's the sharing and the menu button that you have on a normal Pro controller. There is a C button and there's a ZL button on the left side. Because the GameCube controller had a left trigger and a right trigger, and it had a Z button, which effectively is like a right bumper, but it didn't have anything on the left side. So they've added the ZL button as well.
Okay, now on to third-party games. I'm going to kind of go through these a little more quickly just because we've got to get the show moving here. But obviously the big one was From Software's The Dusk Bloods, coming exclusively to Nintendo Switch 2 in 2026.
Crazy.
And, I mean, this was kind of shocking and also very Bloodborne looking. I think a lot of people are making that thing. It has blood in the title. Everyone's like, Yeah,
I think everybody saw it. They were expecting Bloodborne 2. And obviously they can't call it Bloodborne 2 because Sony owns the IP. And they're like, oh, okay, but they're calling it Duskbloods. But it is not Bloodborne 2.
It has nothing to do with Bloodborne.
It has nothing to do with Bloodborne, and it's also a PvPvE multiplayer game.
Right.
It's primarily PvP online. But it's not a narrative classic FromSoft action
single player game.
Single player game, yeah.
Man, holy crap! Did I not get that impression from the direct?
Yeah, that doesn't come through in the trailer. It's only once they started posting information online.
Which
after the fact. It's so I think a lot of people are like got hyped about Bloodborne 2, and then they found out that it's not that.
Those poor Bloodborne fans, man. Holy crap.
They just keep getting yanked around by the chain.
It's almost like they're teasing us with this too, being like, look at it, it's kind of got the Victorian thing going on. Isn't that kind of cool? It is like vampires though, right? Is that why it's like Dustblood?
Yeah, you're a vampire.
I saw some vampirism. Elden Ring is also getting its own tarnished edition on Switch 2. That's kind of awesome.
Terrible name choice. Tarnished is not a good adjective. Yeah. It's just implying, it's Elden Ring, but kind of the worst version on Switch too.
Piece of junk.
Piece of crap.
Yeah. Full of rust. I'm going to skip a few here. Hades 2 is coming to Switch.
What? You skipped over the Legend of Zelda game.
Hyrule Warriors?
Yeah, I get that it's a Hyrule Warriors game, but it's still Zelda.
That's still Zelda, and it's the third game in the series.
Wait, aren't we in the third party section here?
Yeah, because it's Hyrule Warriors. It's Koei Tecmo. They made Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity for Wii U and Switch.
Wait. So I guess it's not first party because it's not they're licensing out the Zelda franchise to a third party developer.
Yeah. It's not being done by the core Zelda team, like AGA Onuma and them. It's being done by the Koei Tecmo team, but they have done a Hyrule Warriors game in the past, and now there's Age of Imprisonment coming. Which
this is interesting. A prequel to Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes. So the one, just as like a really quick sort of detail on it, when Age of Calamity came out, they said that it was a story in the world of the Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, because when you play Age of Calamity, it's technically like an alternate timeline where they show you fighting that war, and then because it didn't want to like break the canon, obviously they had to lose that war for the story of Breath of the Wild to happen. In this alternate timeline, they like win. So they say that it's a story in that world, but for this one, for Age of Imprisonment, they say I can't remember the wording exactly, but they say it's the story that leads into Tears of the Kingdom. So lore-wise, for people who care about Zelda lore, it's probably going to be canon, which would be interesting because the Hyrule Warriors games have not been canon before.
Right. All right. Hades 2. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, Street Fighter 6, Split Fiction, Project 007, and more. And then they got a big old list here of games coming. some NBA 2K, WWE 2K, Civilization 6 or 7. Hogwarts Legacy is coming over. That is on Switch already though, so that's not much of a surprise. Borderlands 4
Broke the stream.
broke the stream, did it?
Yeah, it froze when what's his name?
Man.
Randy Pitchford. Randy came on screen and then the stream froze. Yeah. Yakuza 0 though.
Zero?
Director's cut. They're re-releasing Yakuza 0 on the Switch 2, and it's got new content. They're
There you go.
ridiculous.
Star Wars Outlaws. That was kind of surprising, but I guess they kind of got to get sales wherever they can.
Enter the Gungeon 2. That's been watched for a long time, so people got to see that for the first time.
You know, it would be nice if Switch kind of like was more competitive with their third-party games. You know, I know a lot of these were like previously released games, but hopefully going forward, a lot of new games will come to Switch. I just think it's nice.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because you think like, oh, is this going to be on Xbox or PlayStation? And then now we go like, oh, it's actually going to be it's a Switch exclusive. People are going to be like, what?
Because Nintendo used to have all the third-party games back when they were the big G's. I mean, they're still big, but they're now more kind of focused on their own stuff a lot. Yeah. So it would be nice to get into a place where they're getting a lot more third-party support. All right, gentlemen. I didn't even see how big this list got here. We have a controversial points to discuss section here. Just kind of things that have been oddities and a lot of questions, a lot of people talking online about these things. Obviously, the big one was price. We haven't even talked about that ourselves yet. But it's going to be $449.99 in the US, at $629 in Canada. That's for just the Switch 2 console itself. Does that come with the dock still? It does, right?
It comes with the dock.
Okay. Yeah.
But it is also like purchasable separately.
Yeah. The Nintendo Switch 2, if you want it bundled with Mario Kart World, it's going to be $499 US and $699 in Canada. And that's actually a little cheaper than buying it separately. And that's the other big thing that a lot of people had a problem with. Mario Kart World by itself is $80 American.
But $50.
And I don't think we know Canadian price right now.
Probably not.
Like
no, I don't think we have anything confirmed.
Like this gen, I think a lot of American games went to $70, which was like a big deal, going from 60 because it had been 60 for years.
Yeah.
They went to 70 with this gen. And now here comes Nintendo with $80. So why don't we start there? How do you guys feel about these prices? Because that might translate to like $100 Canadian.
Yeah, easily, I think. It's going to be 100 Canadian.
Before tax.
Which for me is too much. Like I'm a huge Mario Kart fan, and I don't think I can justify it at 80. I read an article of somebody who was interviewing a number of different economists talking about it, some within the gaming industry and some outside of it. And I think the consensus because there's a lot of hubbub about the price of the Switch, and I think that it is a price hike, but you have to consider the hardware requirements, like the hardware that's inside this thing and how much that costs compared to say a laptop of similar spec, right? It's probably going to be more than the Switch costs.
Oh, for sure.
The PlayStation 5, when it first came out, not even the Pro, but the PS5 was, I don't remember what it was in US dollars.
Yeah,
I think it was more than 450. It was like 500 or 600, right?
Yeah.
It's like 700 in Canada. So when you compare things kind of that way, the price of the Switch itself seems a little more reasonable. With inflation and the production costs obviously increasing, like the console being up in price is not a huge surprise to me. I was expecting 400 to 450 American, so that was about right. The big one is the games, because obviously the cost of producing games has skyrocketed. Games are more expensive than ever to make. And with that being said, people are kind of looking at some of these price hikes as a little bit arbitrary, because they've already shown the price of the new Donkey Kong game is going to be $70 American. And I think that that's going to be the standard price for most Switch 2 games, at least first party. Some third party stuff might still be $60 American, but I think it's probably safe to say that $70 is a standard price is probably going to be the case. Why is Mario Kart World $80? People say that because if any game was going to justify the price in people's eyes for Nintendo, it was going to be Mario Kart. Mario Kart is the IP they think they can get away with charging $80 for.
Or a new Zelda, if they had one.
Yeah. So Is it a little bit arbitrary? I think so. I think that they're charging $10 more for it just because they can. I think that a $70 price tag would have been reasonable. I don't think people would have been too upset about $70. People are obviously very upset about $80. But you have to also consider how many people are going to be buying Mario Kart outside of the bundle. Like, how many people are going to buy a Switch 2 at this point and not get Mario Kart?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be an amount, but will it be the majority? Like, at that point,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just say people might, even if they don't want it, people might just go, well, for $50, sure, I'll get it.
Well, when we went down that game list, so many games are like re-releases or ports or versions from other consoles or whatever. I kind of wonder, like, if you buy a Switch 2 today, like, one of my questions was going to be just in general at some point in the show was like, does the Switch 2 have a good launch lineup? I kind of think it doesn't.
Not really.
And like, so like, yeah, I mean, if you're going to buy a Switch 2, it's like, well, are you going to give up one of the few Switch 2 exclusive games? Because Mario Kart World is Switch 2 exclusive, right? It is not on the Switch.
Yeah.
So it's like, because like, I mean, like, yeah, sure, it's great to have Zelda on there, but I mean, it's elsewhere. It's great to have Cyberpunk, but like, hell, Cyberpunk's been out for years and has been updated for years, you know, just to fix it. You know, it's been out for a while. It's sort of like if you had another console or a PC at all, like,
you know, kind of funny.
You have most of this stuff.
It's just funny that they couldn't get Cyberpunk running on a PS4, but they can get it running on a Switch 2, which is probably the power of a PS4.
Although it is a Steam Deck, it is Steam Deck certified as well.
I know, but I'm just saying it's funny.
I think that's kind of largely the consensus that people are saying about it, is like that for any of those games that you would want to like play portably that have been traditionally available on other consoles that aren't like specifically first party Nintendo stuff, you like, most people can already play it on a Steam Deck and like have been. So, and the Steam Deck probably, honestly, is going to run some of them better than the Switch 2 would. So why wouldn't you just keep using your Steam Deck, right? If you have a Steam Deck, I don't think there's any reason to buy a Switch day one, unless you're like hardcore, diehard first-party Nintendo fan.
Just reading that article, I think it was the one you sent, Tim, about like the analysts talking about the prices and stuff. It says a lot of them are talking about the tariffs, that America put on a lot of countries, well, a bunch of countries. But also, yeah, I think one of the consensus was that just Nintendo can.
Yep,
they just can charge that much. You were saying that Mario Kart 8 is like their best-selling, I think, game in general. Is that right?
Or I don't know game in general, but it's the top-selling on the Switch. Yeah,
on the Switch. Yeah, and maybe there's a part of them that they're bundling it and giving it a discount on the bundle. So maybe they want people to buy that bundle. I don't know, if that's the case or not. But they have Nintendo kind of has a monopoly all to themselves with their exclusivity on their games, and it has to be played on their hardware. And there you go.
Yeah, the top three, for context, the top three best-selling Switch games of all time as of the end of December 2024. Not surprising, Mario Kart 8, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Super Smash Bros.
Yeah.
At 67.3 million, 47.4 million, and 35.8 million, respectively. So those are the IPs that if they feel that they want to charge more for them, that they will, because they're going to say, hey, it might scare off some people, but the people that do buy it is going to offset the people that don't buy it.
Here's the question, though. The larger impact is going to have on games in general, because like once whoever was the first one to raise it $10 last gen, it's like everyone's like going to be like, oh, Nintendo raised it? Well, Rockstar is going to be looking at that and be like,
Yeah. I think Rockstar can do
GTA
$99.99.
And a
GTA 6 easily. They can charge whatever they want for GTA. People are going to pay.
Yeah. And my problem with this too is like everyone seems to know that the budgets are insane for games nowadays, and that has to be fixed, or they can't just keep making these massive games. But the solution isn't let's make smaller games with smaller budgets. It's let's raise the price. You know what I mean? That just kind of hurts me inside.
Well, like when you say that though, like that's specifically talking about the big main publishers. Like that is not a problem that's happening on Steam, because there's lots and lots of independent developers that are making fantastic titles that are smaller in scale, smaller projects, but they're at a more affordable price point. And it's like that sort of thing just does not exist on the Switch 2. Like at launch, it doesn't. There aren't going to be those, smaller studio games that are going to be $40 or less. And so like, I think that's the thing that a lot of people are looking at the Switch 2 and the price of the games, and they're kind of forgetting is that when you compare like the N64 to the PS1, N64 games on average were a lot more expensive than PS1 games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as for a long time, Nintendo has considered themselves, at least to a certain extent relative to the rest of the market, they've considered themselves a bit of a premium brand.
Yeah.
Like, that's the reason why they value themselves so highly. They don't put their games on sale, and their games never drop in price over time, is because Nintendo fully believes that there is no reason for them to charge less than what they're charging for their first-party titles, because they believe, no matter what year it is, that those games are still worth what they were charging for them on day one.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, to an extent, I'm like, I kind of respect it, but at the same time, I'm like, you're so fucking full of yourself. Like, I get the mindset of being like, it's worth what it's worth. You know, I price it at what it's worth. Don't lowball me. I know what I got, kind of shit. You know, like, but at the same time, like, if you want to have more people adopt your platform and your content, you have to make it more accessible to them. Like, that's just kind of the rule in consumerism.
But they are successful without it. The Switch sold like crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and their games sold like crazy.
Well, that's what I mean when I say, like, you have to, like, if your goal is to expand your audience, right? What's going to be really interesting is, like, year 2 of the Switch 2, when the early adopters all already have the hardware. What does Nintendo do at that point to then be like, okay, how do we get more Switch 2s into more people's homes?
Yeah.
Because they can't keep it at this price forever. The cost of living is much higher now than it was back in the N64 days. People could afford to drop $600 on a console, accounting for inflation, back then, because they had more expendable income.
What would the Switch 2 Lite do? Is this going to be an enticement? Because, like, we have a Switch. Obviously, we don't know what a Switch 2 Lite looks like, if it even exists. But we do know what a Switch Lite looks like, and it does not dock. It doesn't go on, TVs. It's just a handheld. The Joy-Cons are attached. They're not removable. Things like that. Is a Switch 2 Lite going to be effectively like a Switch, where it's like kind of like a downgraded, like, oh, it's a 720p screen, it's this and that, but it does play Switch 2 games, and it will dock, but it's only 1080p or something like that. And then will that be the thing where they're like, you can't afford the Switch 2? No problem. Here's the Switch 2 Lite, and has all the capabilities just at a lower resolution.
Maybe.
I don't even know if the lower resolution would be the thing. I think it would be the same resolution and just a lower quality display.
That's
right?
Possible too. Yeah, that's
the
possible.
One is or maybe LED or mini LCD. I think they called it with HDR. They could drop both those things and just make it an LCD display with no HDR.
Yeah, 60 FPS cap, no 120.
Yeah.
Cheaper display. Yeah.
For reference, the original Switch launched in Canada for $399 back in 2017. Adjusted for inflation, that's around $501.
So this is definitely more for sure.
But it's a better console.
It is better, more powerful hardware relative to the time as well.
Yeah, time has moved on, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The thing with this type of stuff too is, like, I'm not super offended by the price if the launch lineup was better. Like, if there was something where I'm like, absolutely, like, holy fuck, I want to play that. If the new Xbox came out and it was like Fallout 5 is on this new Xbox only, it's like, well, I guess I'm buying a new Xbox right away.
It depends on the person in that scenario, right? Like,
For
you
sure.
care about Fallout. If Fallout 5 was on Xbox, whatever console day one, I like Fallout, but I'm not going to buy a console for it.
Yeah. It like a console seller is like a big commitment per person kind of thing.
Yep.
Let's just go over some of the accessories here. Nintendo Switch 2 has a new Pro controller. Yep. They included the C button. It's $80 American. Did they say whether old Pro controllers are compatible or not?
Old Joy-Cons and Pro controllers from the Switch 1 will work with Switch 2.
That's nice then. The camera, the brand new camera, is going to be $50, and it's just got like a little base and a little stick. Camera sits on top, and you put it by your TV, plug it into the top of your Switch.
Kind of cheaper than I was expecting, to be honest.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good price.
Yeah,
but we'll
see how it performs in low light situations, though.
Yeah, and for not white people. That's always been a thing with Nintendo, is their cameras have always struggled to recognize people that aren't Asian or white. So, put it that way.
Joy-Con 2 controller pair for both of them is $90 American. The charging grip is $35.
Which is the, like, controller surrogate thing.
And that one's kind of cool because it has the magnets now. It's not like they slide in. They just like the Switch 2, they just kind of
And it charges.
snap into place.
I don't think the first party one for the Switch, I don't think it ever released a charging version.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there no charging? Well, I guess, is there no charging grip or just a grip, I guess, with the Switch 2 anymore? Because like the original Switch came with the non-charging grip.
Yeah.
Where you could like, kind of dock, quote unquote, the Joy-Cons as a controller. Is that not included with the Switch 2?
I don't think it's included. I don't think so.
Not a fan of that myself.
Well, it's interesting. It also has Joy-Con 2 straps, which are $13. Does it not come with straps either?
I imagine it will.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm imagining those are like extras because they also have the dock listed separately. And the dock obviously comes with the Switch.
Now, are they selling the dock separately just as a backup? Like if you break it or it breaks or whatever?
If you break it or you want to have a separate setup on a different TV.
Oh, okay.
It's also mechanical now, too. It also has the cooling system inside of it. So, like, the cooling system could break and it's like, I don't want to buy a whole new Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be $110. And yeah, that's right. So when you're running that game at 4K 60, you're going to want some airflow on that thing.
That one game, that Metroid Prime, that's it.
Yeah, that's right. The wheel, $20. Joy-Con wheel
pair. There's two of them.
There's two wheels in the
or if you want to do gyro controls in Mario Kart.
I gotta say, Nintendo is still pumping out the plastic in this day and age.
Holy crap.
They're pumping out the plastic accessories here. Switch to carrying case and screen protector, $35.
That's pretty good price, too.
All-in-one carrying case, $80. And Nintendo Switch 2 AC adapter, $30, although you can use any USB-C charger, really. So,
yeah,
not big of an issue there.
I did want to actually point something out because I mentioned that N64 controller. So it does require a Nintendo Switch Online subscription, but I also found, so this is from Video Games Chronicle. So it says here, a message on the My Nintendo UK store reads that only players who are invited to pre-order the console will be able to purchase the GameCube controller. The GameCube controller GCN Nintendo Classics will be exclusively available for Nintendo Switch Online members, and it will initially be offered only to those who invited to pre-order a Nintendo Switch 2 console. They have then, because that was the official message, and then there was a screenshot here, what looks to be a screenshot from that store. It has the GameCube controller listed here, and it reiterates that message. But it's for $58.99, and I believe that's Great British pounds.
Yes, that's probably 80, 70, 80 bucks American.
For a controller for an emulator, and you have to have the subscription as well. Now, there is a key word in here. It says initially only offered to those. So like this is maybe like a scalper thing. Who knows?
It's a scalper thing.
But like, that's still an expensive controller.
Yeah.
Like,
it is expensive.
like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like, oh, it's about the same as a Pro controller. If you can use it, because they showed being able to like rebind the keys in the emulators and stuff for the GameCube. If you can use that controller for Switch games, that would be great. Like
that'd be cool,
I'm sure eventually they're going to do another Smash Bros. People love the GameCube controller for playing Smash Bros. They re-released a wired, they re-released a GameCube controller specifically for Smash Bros. For the Switch. Like, so
this is another like issue with scale though, that they're not making 20 million of these controllers.
Yeah,
it's probably in the thousands, right?
It's a niche market.
Yeah,
but the GameCube is also. It's funny because there's like so much like outpouring of love and support for the GameCube stuff in today's day and age because people are really nostalgic for it. At the time, the GameCube was considered a failure to Nintendo. Mm-hmm. It was a commercial flop. It did not do well.
It was largely panned. Yeah,
it was a terribly selling console. People love it a lot more now than they did back then.
Will we see a Wii U themed Switch 3?
Wii U emulator on the Switch 3?
Oh, man,
you know what? Remember I had those mini consoles? They had NES Mini and the SNES Mini, and then they stopped. They didn't do an N64. You got them right there? Yeah.
Right there.
An N64 one would have been awesome. But
I still have my N64.
Involved, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our second point of discussion here. The GameChat functionality overall, and this includes the C button, which is an exclusive button just to launch the GameChat menu, I guess.
Seemingly.
And so, based on what we can tell, to use GameChat, you need a subscription to the online services that Nintendo offers. And so, if you don't have that, the C button is kind of just useless, I suppose. Unless it
Allegedly.
does something else. I don't know if it does screenshots or something. Maybe
There's already a screenshot button.
there's a separate screenshot button.
There's a
Yeah,
share
on the
button.
Switch.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
So
it shows you how often I use my Switch.
So for now, it's like all they've shown is that the C button is only used for game chat.
Yeah.
And like sharing your gameplay, your screen to your friends and stuff. Which as an asterisk as well, like you can only, I believe you can only use the game chat feature with people that are on, like that are your friends and family. You can't use it with just randoms. So there's that
Is
like
that a
parental control feature
control
thing kind of built into it. Same thing with using the camera and all that stuff. So it's trying to, you know, there's no public lobbies in Mario Kart, for example.
Well, that's nice then. Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
like, and additionally, the game chat is also going to be free to everybody who has a Switch 2 until March 31st of 2026. So it's almost a year of using game chat, whether you have the subscription or not. But beyond that point, you have to have Nintendo Switch Online to
Which
be
is
able to
how
use this
much? Do you
feature.
know off the top of your head?
With the expansion pack, which is what gives you like the extra content in games and access to the emulators, it's currently for the Switch One $50 American a year.
That's not bad, actually. That's pretty good.
It's the one that I have. So yeah, relative to other subscriptions on like PlayStation, Xbox Live, Game Pass is close because it's like different tiers of it and stuff. But even other subscriptions like Netflix or Disney Plus, like $50 a year now, like in 2025, is a fairly reasonable ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
If it's something you're going to be using a lot, right? But yeah, it is weird to have like a hard dedicated button on a controller that you cannot use after March 31st, 2026 if you don't have Nintendo Switch Online. It just seems kind of strange to me. And obviously like people have, TV remotes that have like a dedicated like Netflix or Hulu or, Disney
Right.
Plus button on it, that if you don't have that subscription, you just don't hit that button. It doesn't matter, right? There's 1,000 buttons on a TV remote that people just they don't use those buttons, right? They use volume, they use power, and they maybe use input. Those are the buttons I hit on my TV remote. So it's not a big deal to have a button on a controller, but it is weird that there's only so many, like they have to engineer these controllers, right? Like they go through multiple rounds of R&D and testing and everything. And to have a dedicated button on a controller that only has so much real estate for space and only has so many like buttons on it, that one of them is potentially useless. What happens if you don't have that subscription and you hit the button? Does it pull up the eShop to buy it? Like, or does it do nothing?
I had a theory, and this is not based in anything but like an estimate from the tech industry, I suppose.
Yeah.
But my theory was that this thing's going to be, or the game chat's going to be free to March 31st, like you said. That gives early adopters as well as people who get it at Christmas or during the holiday season, Black Friday, all that stuff.
Yeah.
All those people like at least 3 months ish to test this thing out. I think that if you think about it, like it's a little bit under 12 months, but it's enough. There's enough months in there that will entice people to like potentially purchase a Switch Online subscription, right? So of course, in order to use it if they like it. So it's a way for Nintendo to quote unquote force people to give it a try for free as well. However, I think that at that point, there'll probably be a system update. There'll be the console will be enough months old that there will likely be an update, and that C button will become reprogrammable. So something like maybe it's still tap once to open chat. Maybe that's hard coded, but it might be like press and hold to open your favorite game. Could be double tap. And the reason why I say that is because when Copilot Plus PCs launched, Microsoft obviously made it so that the left button, which was not a Copilot button, is the start button. And the right button, where the right start menu button would normally be, became a Copilot button. And it was hard coded to be a Copilot button. And then a number of months later, they then allowed that Copilot button to be reprogrammed. And same on my watch. So I have a smartwatch where it has 2 buttons on the side. For a while, when they introduced the digital wallet, or when they were pushing the digital wallet on the watch, they made it so that a long press of the button was the only thing that button could do. Like a short press couldn't do anything, and a long press would do a wallet, like it would open up the digital wallet. Since then, they have allowed it so that they say, okay, long press is still your digital wallet, but you choose what the buttons do. or specifically that bottom button. You choose what that bottom button does, I think on a short press or just like a tap. So I think that this might just be a way that the tech industry does. And like Nintendo may have seen those examples and was like, hey, we'll make this service free. We'll like quote unquote force the people to try it. Some will be enticed to use it. If they don't like it, well, especially if it's for a kid, well, if their favorite game is Mario Kart, well, maybe the parent will go into the settings, make long press C, open Mario Kart. A little kid opens up or turns on his Switch, hold C, Mario Kart boots up, and then that's it. Like that would be a decent use case for something like that. Again, this is not rooted in anything but like an estimate for me, but I would imagine that's likely what's going to happen to this button.
I would hope so, because it would be weird for Nintendo to have a button on their console and Pro Controller and everything that just it doesn't do anything else otherwise. Because they have to understand, right? Like people are going to buy Switches for their kids, and they may not give those kids a subscription to the online service. They just may not. Maybe they'll do it for like their main Switch in their house, but not for the kids' Switch 2. Like it's going to be a scenario. So I just am curious to see what they're going to do at that point. Maybe it'll be dedicated to the game share or something.
That'd be cool too. Like, yeah, even if Nintendo like not even necessarily makes it programmable, but they could just like add something, right? Where it's like, okay, now the C, you double tap for this, you long press for this, stuff like that. That'd be okay.
So GameChat supports up to 12 friends who can voice chat using the built-in microphone, and which they showed it like a pretty far away in the living room, and are claiming it can pick up the voice and have it pick up clearly and not pick up the TV that's right next to it that's blaring the sound from the game. So we'll have to see about that.
And apparently, like with the noise, the voice isolation as well. Like they had in the direct, like a guy in his apartment and then his roommate in the kitchen behind him making a smoothie with a blender.
Yeah.
And apparently the blender just goes when it gets like super muffled, and they can still hear him fine. So if that actually functions that way from that distance in the Nintendo Switch 2 built-in microphone, that's the best goddamn microphone ever designed by man. Like that's insane. And I read like additionally to that with the dev interview that was posted that same day on Nintendo's website, that the microphone can also differentiate. Like if somebody is sitting closer to the Switch and someone else is sitting further away, like they're in a living room and they're playing a game together or whatever, that it will automatically detect a quieter voice and a louder voice, and it will equalize them. It will bring them both to the same volume, so it'll gain the lower one, which I'm just concerned about. If it's detecting that there's a really quiet voice and it boosts the gain to make them louder, then you're going to make background noise louder too. So I'd be really interested to see how this microphone's going to work in real testing.
I have a question actually, because I may have missed this. So I know like you guys are talking about the microphone that's on the tablet, right? On the Switch 2 tablet.
Yeah. Yep.
If you have a Pro Controller, it has a headphone jack. So obviously that's for like you could plug in headphones. Is there a microphone on that controller, or like if I use that headphone jack, is it like a headphone and microphone jack? Like those people that were in the demo during the Switch 2 Direct, when they were talking, was all of that going through the microphone on the Switch?
The built-in Switch microphone, yes.
I thought some of it was through the controller. So that's crazy.
No, there's no microphone on the controller. Additionally, in that like interview, like information that I read through on the Nintendo website for like the details and functionality of stuff, the Pro Controller does have a headphone jack on the bottom of it, finally, and it does support a microphone. It's a stereo audio and microphone jack. And we didn't talk about it before, but the Pro Controller also has paddle buttons on the back that are reprogrammable, so that like rebindable, so that might lend some weight to your theory of them making the C button rebindable. Because like years after the Switch came out, they added like Bluetooth audio device support to it, just in like a software update. So like you could use wireless headphones with your Switch, which is something people were asking for a long time. And it was wild to me that was something that they could just update through software.
Well, I remember like somebody like broke, like, I don't know what they call it, jailbreak or whatever, into the Switch. And they found out that Nintendo had just disabled it. Like the hardware was fully capable of it. Nintendo was just like, nope, no Bluetooth. and then people were selling USB Bluetooth dongles because you could use USB audio. So then people were just selling those. And then Nintendo was like, nope, those things are no longer good. I guess.
Yeah. On top of chatting with friends, you can also up to 4 people can share their screen, and this looked like it looked a lot like Discord. Like it's like we copied the Discord like
Yeah.
icons for like the people's videos when there's not a video feed there.
Except
But
Discord's not at
anyway,
10 FPS.
you can watch your friends if they all have the camera on their plugged into their Switch, and you can also share your gameplay. Now, one of the interesting things was during the videos where they showed this being demoed, the gameplay looked like it was running at a very low frame rate in the shared screen on the person's console. Now, their game ran fine.
Yep.
It wasn't interrupted. Looked like it was running fine, but they actually showed us the game share, and it looked kind of rough, which was surprising. But also, it's like, okay, they're admitting they're not hiding it. They're showing us in the direct that it runs a little poorly, but it also doesn't need to run great. You're just kind of watching.
Yeah, and there were other videos that they like. There's another one they uploaded to their YouTube channel yesterday, or maybe after the direct. Anyway, kind of showing the like use cases of and going more into the details of GameChat and showing like, oh, this person's playing a game, their friend's playing a different game, and they're stuck, and then they're like, oh, like show me where you're at. So they use the screen share to be able to see it, and you can like pull the screen share up into like a fuller picture mode, but it's still at that like 10 FPS performance, which is like, you know, in the dev interviews they said they wanted to prioritize obviously like the Switch running what it's running, and then this is like an auxiliary feature. They didn't want to prioritize frame rate for that. They wanted to make sure you could still play Mario Kart at 120 FPS or whatever, and allocate those resources. But it does seem odd to me that they were like, oh yeah, having these other gameplay streams on your screen at 10 FPS is good. That's what we want to aim for. Like at that point, it's like, do you just scrap it? Like, does it really add that much value to the experience? Because it's really jarring when you're playing a game. Like, it's not so bad to watch something that's 10 FPS if it's been 10 FPS the whole time and you haven't been watching anything before. But if you're looking at your screen and it's 60, and then you look at theirs and it's 10, the difference is extremely jarring to the eye, right?
Yeah.
Do you think they're just trying to, because like PlayStation does this, where they have share play? Do you think they're just trying to catch up in some sense or compete in their own way, offering some similar feature? And me and my friends, Matt included, we've used share play to show off like us playing certain games. We watched Aaron play Silent Hill 2, you know, so we've used it quite a few times actually.
At higher than 10 FPS as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, like it's a cool feature. Like, I don't want to say like, oh, do you just scrap it because I'm being cynical about it? But I'm just wondering what that conversation was like in the boardroom, you know? Clearly, like something that's important for Nintendo, because with like the virtual game card feature as well, is that like they want the experience of playing the Switch 2 to be kind of the same, whether you were like playing with friends locally or over the internet. Like they want that experience of back in the day, if you had like your Game Boy and you're on the playground, you could just take your game cartridge out, give it to your friend, they pop it on their Game Boy and they're just playing it. And you can like look over each other's shoulders at the screens and like see what each other is playing and stuff. And that's always been the case with all the handhelds, with doing the, you know, the Game Boy Advance and then the SP and the DS and the 3DS and all this stuff. Like it's always been a very like social, interpersonal kind of gameplay scenario. That's what Nintendo has like always really prioritized, which has kind of been their niche, which is nice in the you know current market. And it feels like through COVID, especially with them being kind of forced to isolate again, it seemed like they were like, we have to bring this feature back. Like we need some sort of functionality where like even though people are potentially playing with each other over the internet, we still want to have this feeling of being in the same room together. We've got the camera, we've got the multiple screens on screen. You can see your friends, you can see their reactions in real time. You can see what's going on their screen, you can see what's going on your screen, and it's kind of like you're all sitting there in the same room. It's just kind of funny to me how that was like such a high priority to them in terms of the functionality of the Switch 2. You know, and then that comes at the cost of having low frame rate for the game. The screen sharing.
Yeah. Well, the thing, I think you mentioned it earlier, Tim, we were discussing this too, is like when there was 4 people in the call, including like the person that was like being filmed, I guess, basically it's like there were 3 small little like kind of picture in picture 10 FPS streams going on. And you had mentioned that like that's okay and it makes sense to not prioritize those computationally because you're looking at your main screen, like you're driving in Mario Kart and you can just like see the streams. You could like quickly check in on your friends, but it's just a quick check in. You're not staring at those screens.
Yeah.
But then they showed like another piece of functionality where you could like take one person's screen and expand it, and it lets everyone else know like, hey, like someone's screen has been expanded. And then that thing also still looked bad. Like it still had the 10 FPS, which was kind of nuts. And then like you had mentioned like, hey, like I'm looking at this person's screen, like it's taking up a good, 70% or whatever of my screen at this point. Yeah. My game doesn't need to run anything more than 10, like my local game, because I'm not looking at it. Yeah. I have this big video popped up. So why why is it 10? Like props to them for, I think one of you said this earlier, but like props to them for not lying. But like out of anything in that Switch 2 Direct, I know some things were jarring for price and stuff, but this was the most like technically jarring. Where when they showed it, I was like, what the fuck is that? And I literally backed out of my video. I thought my video fucked up. I backed out, went back in because I watched it on demand. I didn't watch it live. And I was like, no, that's this just bad frame rate. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So it's odd, but like you say, it's good that they didn't try to hide it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We also have here concerns about GameCube emulation locked behind the Switch 2 hardware. So I'm not too up to date on this. What's this about?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's like a particularly loud majority. It might be a minority thing, but I had seen a lot of people online kind of complaining that the GameCube emulation is locked behind the Switch 2, because I think a lot of people were expecting it to eventually come to the Switch 1, because we had NES and then we had SNES and then we got N64. And so I think people were kind of expecting GameCube emulation. But I was kind of looking into it, and it seems like hardware-wise, it just actually wasn't possible on the Switch 1 to run the GameCube emulator on the hardware that the Switch had.
Really?
Because there were people who did try to overclock their Switches and force GameCube or Wii emulation on the Switch 1, and it was pretty much in unplayable states. Like it was, It just, and that's obviously shocking. You're talking about jailbreakers versus like the literal people who made the hardware. Obviously there's like a difference in what you're going to be able to like pull off with optimization and stuff. But the first couple of months of when the N64 emulation was on the Switch, it was also pretty fucking bad. Like Ocarina of Time ran like shit, and the button, like the controls mapping was terrible, and like it just wasn't a good experience. To call a spade, right? So then to expect a GameCube emulation on that same hardware is like, we couldn't even do the N64 right. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Like it took time for them to make the N64 kind of acceptable on the Switch. So like, I've seen some people that are like, oh, now I was waiting for GameCube emulation. Now I got to buy a whole new console for it. And it's like, well, yeah, because it kind of requires better hardware than the Switch has. The Switch came out in 2017, and even for the time, it was pretty underpowered. So like,
and also I don't like when people get angry because like there's no expectation. It's not like Nintendo announced GameCube emulation was going to come to the Switch original. Yeah. It's just like, just because NES and SNES did doesn't mean that GameCube is going to come.
It didn't even mean that N64 would.
Right.
Like I was hoping for it, and then it did happen, and I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I was pretty disappointed by it. But yeah, there's absolutely no expectation, even like on my end personally, that GameCube was even going to pop up there.
And Marcus Brownlee has like a saying of something like his reviews are based on the product as it ships, not about promises and future software updates. Yeah. Right. So if you bought the Switch 1 expecting GameCube emulation, it's like you bought it for the wrong reason, and it wasn't even promised. So, now this was I thought this was kind of crazy. The Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour app. It is not free. It does not even come installed on the console. It's allegedly going to be somewhere around $6.12 American. And it basically, now I guess I've heard that there's like other mini games in it of some sort, but all they showed off was just you going to a question mark, getting a bunch of text, and then going to the next question mark.
It's still like a demo. Like it's still like they showed the golf game, but it's still just a demo of capability. It's not like PGA 2K25.
Yeah. Like so that's very bizarre that they're charging for it, and the fact that it's so cheap is like, why not just throw it in?
Yeah.
Or do they think they're going to make a lot of money off this thing? I don't know what the rationale is behind this.
Make a quick million.
Who knows?
If I see this thing sell 100,000 copies, I'm gonna be face palming so friggin' hard.
What if it outsells GTA?
Why would you buy this? Hey, bro, jump on Welcome Tour, bro. Let's meet up in Welcome Tour.
I'll stream it at 10 FPS.
I'll stream it at 10 FPS.
Shit, man, I forgot to renew my Switch Online subscription. My C button doesn't work, bro.
Damn.
You know what though? Nintendo is quirkily cute. They had like the guy saying like, "Look, I'm over here," and he's like, "I'm in the app," and he's like this little blue guy walking around.
They're
it's
full of whimsy.
but it's also lame.
Nintendo has always been about the whimsy, right, and the charm, and like sometimes it lands and sometimes it doesn't.
At least they try, I guess.
It's weird, like not to go off on a tangent about it, but like it's weird when they act like that, but then they're just so like tone deaf about other things. Like they're just completely, like up to this point, like completely non-competitive in the market in terms of having hardware that can like run the same things that other offerings on the market can offer. And like, I don't know, it's like on one hand, they're just like being super like, Sigma mindset. They're doing their own thing. They don't care about anybody else. They're like, oh, don't worry about like comparing us to them. Compare us to what we had in the past. And it's like people can raise plenty of extremely legitimate criticisms against the way that Nintendo is doing things, given the year that they're in when they're doing it. And then Nintendo's just like, I'm just going to keep doing my own thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's equal parts, good for them. Like they're just kind of doing their own thing, but also frustrating. It's like we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. We already had this figured out. It's 2025. Why are you still suffering with network connection? Like we've had this solved. Anyway,
the account system, like not to get into, but like the account system on the 3DS, where it like changed 2 or 3 times, it was like holy frickin' Christ. And then they were like, for the Switch, we need a Nintendo account. I was like, well, I have like that Nintendo like I don't know orange account where it has like the orange background. It's like, oh no, not that. It's like, oh my god, what do you mean not that? Like I've converted to this, and now I'm converting again. Like,
and then finally here, what's the deal with these game key cards?
So. It's something that I think there's a lot of misinformation floating around right now. People think that like you're buying physical games and that it's just like effectively you're buying a game like key digitally. Like you're not buying it physically. It's just that you put it in the cartridge in the system, and then you've got like it lets you download this digital game, and then you can't, you may as well have just bought it digitally effectively. Mm-hmm. But what it is it's effectively like a replacement for on the Switch 1, there were the digital code only games that like you could go to the store and you could buy a game case, and all it had in it was a piece of paper with a code on it that you would then go to the Nintendo eShop and punch it in. This is a physical cartridge. So it still has a physical cartridge. You put it in and it lets you download the game from assuming from the eShop, but like functionally it's the same. But it also allows for either like lending the game and also reselling it. So you have to have that cartridge in the console to be able to play the game. So if you take it out, you can't just like boot it up just because it's like installed in your hardware or whatever. But if you give that cartridge to a friend, then they can also go onto the eShop, download the game, and they can play it. So it's like, again, we I think maybe more so before the show, we were talking about how Nintendo seems to kind of be working their way towards going a more digital route. Going more digital only, on top of the virtual game card sharing thing that they're doing, where you can like share games between systems, including Switch 1 systems, where you can like lend a game from one system to another system with your friends or family members or whatever, and then it lends it to them for 14 days, and then it comes back automatically. Like they wanted the digital game system to be akin to being in person and just handing your game cartridge to your friend. So you can do that digitally as well.
So okay. You buy the game card.
Yep.
It's a physical cartridge, but it doesn't have the game on it, correct?
It'll have something, whether it's like
whatever code is to activate
a code
it, right?
or whatever, yeah.
So you plug it into your Switch too.
Yep.
It downloads a digital version from the eShop.
Yep.
I can then take it out.
Yep.
And then still play the game.
No.
So what's the difference between having a cartridge and having this game card?
I don't know the specific reason behind why they're doing this.
It just sounds like it's
but
a physical card.
I don't know. Maybe it's for games that like they can't fit all the data on the cartridge or something. I don't know.
How does this solve the problem of sharing digital content?
They have said that it is only also for like select games.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it's like something that's...
It's probably going to be extremely niche, and it's not something the average consumer is going to need to worry about.
I don't understand it.
This could... I'm going to lay out a scenario. I don't know if this fully makes sense. But imagine a game where it's online all the time. I'm just going to say the Division 2. First thing that came to my mind. Division 2, it's an online game that constantly gets updated. The content changes all the time. The game's a lot different than it was at launch. So let's just hypothetically say you go to the store, you buy a Switch 2 version of Division 2, which is not confirmed, by the way, but you buy a Switch 2 version of Division 2. You then have a physical Switch 2 cartridge. You put the Switch 2 cartridge in the Switch 2, and then it downloads Division 2, which makes sense because it's an online game and maybe the cartridge was made in September and you bought it in March, whatever. So now the game's a lot different. So it downloads it, but now the physical cartridge is effectively your license key.
Because that's the same as having a cartridge.
What do you mean by is that the same as having a cartridge? What do you mean?
If I had the same game on a cartridge, wouldn't it work just the same way as a license on a cartridge?
That's a good question.
That's what I'm saying. This is where I'm confused. I could also take that physical cartridge and hand it to a friend, and they can play it for 7 days and then give it back to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. I could also sell that cartridge. Yeah. Like, how is this solving the digital problem? It's like they made a physical NFT, and it doesn't even. It's just a physical thing. It's just a.
Yeah, Nintendo's up on the NFTs. Actually,
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to look into this because, like, I honestly don't understand what's going on. But we don't.
I remember seeing something about this though, and like I also was confused at the time, but I thought it was just like I kind of like watched it and was like, I think I'm just misunderstanding something simple, and I never really kept thinking about it. But now this is like a little bit weird. Although, like if you think about it, if you have a PlayStation like 5 game, like I buy some disc-based PlayStation 5 games because they'll go on sale for like $30 at EB Games or GameStop, whatever. Like those games will ultimately download usually like a huge game like patch. And sometimes that patch will include like game data if it is like an always on game or whatever. But like the benefit of having the disc is not only the price in my particular case, but the benefit is that if like, let's say you have a slower internet connection for a lot of games, like the disc will say contain like 60 of a 75 gig game. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, okay, you got, your 60 gigs and then you're only downloading 15. You're not downloading all 75 gigs.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll figure that out another day. We'll report back.
I think overall, it's just like, don't look at it as a like comparison to game cartridges. Look at it as just an upgrade from download codes. It's effectively the same system as download codes, except that in this way, it's not a one and done purchase. You're the only person who can play this anymore. It's a way to take a game that you bought digitally with a download code, effectively like for the purposes of use, assign it to a cartridge. And then you can give that cartridge to other people, and they can play the air quotes digital game that you bought too.
Oh, that makes total sense. What you just said then. That just clicked in my head.
If we wanted to just share it amongst ourselves.
Like if we strategically, us three strategically purchase Switch 2 games, like if each of us purchased one game, they were all unique. They're single player games, whatever. And then like I beat my game, Tim beats his, Brian beats his. If they were the codes from back in the day, we can't share them. But now it's like, hey Tim, like I want to play your game. You want to play my game? Here's my cartridge.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. So the reason why it's probably a distinction is because usually on the Switch, like some games do require online connection, but like most of the game, if not all of the game, would be on the cartridge in most cases. These ones probably say like requires online because it's downloading the whole game. There's not much data on the card. You're just giving me a physical license. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But that makes a lot more sense. We could also buy the cartridge.
Yeah.
And then swap the cartridges.
You could.
This isn't solving anything.
It's what it is doing is it's taking like digital only download codes that already exist for like the Switch
and
1
and stuff,
them
cartridges
and making them physical.
That makes sense though, Ryan. Then
why would you buy the digital copy then? Buy the cartridge.
No. It's because that's what we're saying. That's what we're doing.
No, he means just buy the physical version of the game.
Buy the physical cartridge. It's the same thing.
I thought that's what we were doing.
No, you're saying we'll buy the digital code.
It's a separate thing.
It's now represented as a cartridge.
Yeah.
Just buy the cartridge.
Like, you know how the games would, like, you would go to the store, the physical store, and you would buy the copy of the game, and you open up the game case, and there's no disc in there or cartridge. It's just a piece of paper with a download code on it.
Yep.
At that point, if you have that versus just like buying the same game but on disc or cartridge, why wouldn't you just buy the disc version? Because you can then give it to a friend.
Right.
Like, it seems like they should probably just get rid of the game key card system entirely. Like, I'm wondering, you know, as we talk about it more, I'm like wondering what the benefit is, like the use case. Like, why not just have the digital card and get rid of the download codes, the physical purchasing of a download code entirely? If you want a digital game, just buy it off the eShop. If you want a physical game, buy it in store. Why are we buying digital codes in store?
Yeah, so that second thing you said, that's what I thought was happening, and I thought I misunderstood it the first time. Now I understand the confusion with this particular system. This is ridiculous. This is a Nintendo Online account all over fucking again. Like, it's like we've solved like borrowing, lending, and sending people games. The hell's going on?
It says that, okay, I'm reading an article here. They are not a replacement for the existing game cards. Nintendo is still putting their games on cards fully. This is more for third-party publishers that won't/can't pay for a larger storage card to put these games on, and instead sell empty boxes with a download code on it.
Which, again, just sell it digitally on the eShop then.
So fucking niche.
But it's I guess they're still trying to support the brick and mortar stores.
Oh,
so here's like an indie dev, I guess, who can't put their game on a cartridge or whatever, and now maybe they can with this system because it's a digital code, but being sold at a brick and mortar store.
And when you buy one of these, it's still like a Switch 2 cartridge, but like you don't realize this, but it maybe only has like 10 megabytes on it instead of like 20 gigs or whatever.
Yeah.
That's it's so specific though. Like, what?
I guess it's more for like if you were a developer and you only published on the eShop, you couldn't pay to get cartridges made and packaging and ship them across the country or whatever. You don't have like a publisher able to do that for you. This is now, I guess, a cheaper way for you to sell at Best Buy or whatever a cartridge in a physical store that people might want to buy, but then it just downloads it on the eShop.
I almost wonder if this is like so like the original lending thing then makes sense then. Like that,
you can lend your digital only games.
Yeah, that three-way scenario where we each bought a unique game, we could then more easily pass that to each other as we beat the games.
Yeah, well, okay, that's wild. All right.
But it would have been the same if we had just bought the cartridges.
That's correct.
But this is for games that can't afford to have a full-on cartridge.
Yeah.
Just a dummy cartridge.
That's all it is. It's just this specific scenario where the publishers cannot afford to manufacture or whatever. They don't have the production spending to create cartridges for their games.
They probably should have not mentioned this, and they probably should have just sold it, and then on the box just been like, requires digital download. That's literally all they could have said.
Yeah, you know? They probably would have been better suited because like people saw that and ran with it, and they were like, "Oh my god, every game cartridge is going to be like this," and it's not the case. So just to get ahead of the panic on that, they've specified this is for some games only.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on to what we are excited for. I guess we all kind of just threw ones in here, so I guess I'll cover the ones I talked about or I put in or whatever, however we want to do this. But I do like that they're using now. It's not an OLED display, and I think a lot of people were kind of surprised by that. But that does increase the price. So in an already expensive console, you're going to slap an OLED display in there. You're going to have a more pricier console.
We got nice LCDs now too, though. To be fair, like there's some pretty good looking.
It's a mini LCD, so I imagine that's going to be a little bit nicer. It won't exactly be OLED, but it will be nicer. And then it supports HDR too, which would be amazing, particularly with something like Mario Kart World. So that'll be pretty nice. 1080p, that's kind of all you need for a display that size, even though it's bigger than the current Switch.
Yeah, it's 7.9 inches, I think.
That's still, 1080 is still great for that. So
yeah,
it's still going to be a nice, pretty crisp display.
Like my phone can be 4K, and it's so it's so small. You don't need 4K at that size. Yeah,
you're wasting energy too, powering all those pixels.
Yeah.
4K 60 when docked, and it has additional cooling. So actually, we talked about it as a bit. It's nice. It'll be nice to see some Nintendo games in 4K, though. I think
it's going to be
like
weird.
Breath of the Wild would be nice in 4K.
Yeah. It's the same as when I first booted up my Wii U and playing Mario Kart 8 for the first time and seeing Mario in 1080p for the first time. The first time a first-party Nintendo game had ever actually been 1080p natively. And I was like, this looks wrong. This is the first time that Mario has ever been this HD outside of like promotional material. So it'll be very strange to see a Nintendo game at 4K.
And like 1080 played on a 4K TV, you can kind of notice the jaggedness of the edges and stuff. So getting a 4K 60 FPS display would be nice.
This is my favorite like hardware feature, I think, because like I think I've mentioned this in the past where I'm like I want it so that when I'm on like, stable wall power, I want this thing to be more capable. And I know that like the Switch is like a little bit that, but this is like another step where it's like, hey, we're going to bump this thing from, from 1 gen HD, which is full HD 1080p to, the best we have generally for gaming right now, which is 4K up to potentially 60 FPS. And we acknowledge this thing's going to be pumping out heat. So we cooled it better. So it's like, instead of this, the Switch dock basically just being like a dumb piece of like metal and plastic kind of thing. I know there's a little more to it than that, but generally, this thing like feels like it's like, okay, this is like a dock. Like this is some good power that's coming in. So this is my favorite feature myself from a hardware perspective.
It's no longer just an adapter, like a display adapter. It's an actual dock that has functionality.
Yeah, which is like really good to see. And what I'm hoping is that like in general games will just like benefit from it. Like even if they're like, hey, we're targeting 1080p 30, well maybe in docked they'll still be 1080, but it'll be 1080 60. Like that's potential. That'd be cool.
It just dawned on me. We were talking about the new kickstand and how it's like a C stand. Because on this older one, if you have this piece of metal or plastic or whatever it is in the way of the cooling system that's on the new dock, you need that cutout to make more contact with the fan.
That's a good point.
Or whatever the cooling, however it interfaces with that. So
that might be why. Yeah, good point.
That's a huge hinge, by the way. Mine is so shitty. It's incredible. It's fucking incredible.
Yeah, the OLED's nice.
I did put Mario Kart World in here. I did love the theme song or whatever the song was. It was freaking awesome. I think some like even Mario Odyssey had amazing songs in it and stuff. I don't know how they're doing it. They're just freaking rocking songs.
I mean, some of the most legendary video game composers of all time, in some form or another, are involved with Nintendo. Like, Nintendo's music has always been extremely iconic. I don't think it's a huge surprise to see that trend continuing.
Yeah.
For me, I barely mentioned it before, but one of the features that they did talk about, not to a huge extent in the Direct, was the game share feature, which is effectively the modern version for the Switch 2 of the download. I believe it's called the download play from back in the DS days. So you used to be able to, with one copy of a game, you would go into a specific multiplayer mode where other nearby DSs could download the game that you are playing and play multiplayer with you at the same time. So you could have up to like 4 people playing the same game off of one game cartridge. Which was crazy. It was super cool for playing like Mario Kart DS had that feature. I think Mario Kart or Super Mario 64 DS had that feature. There were like specific multiplayer maps that you could download and play locally with people when you just had one copy of the game. It was a super cool feature, and they're bringing it back for the Switch 2. And not only that, but it's also backwards compatible in that you can be running a game off of Switch 2 and you can share that game to a Switch 1 and play it multiplayer as well off of one copy of the game. So that's super, super sick. Obviously at launch, it's only going to be, that feature will only be compatible for certain games, but undoubtedly we're going to see that expand in the future. They showed off, I think it's called like Clubhouse games or something. It's like they were playing Go and other like tabletop sort of games. But it's shareable in multiplayer, and I'll be really interested to see if something like Mario Kart has that again, and if it's going to be limited in functionality, kind of in the same way that it was in the DS day. Like, for example, the person who was hosting the game, they could customize their like character and the cart and stuff, but for everyone who was download playing, they had to play, I think it was a Shy Guy in like the default Kart. Because it was like it didn't want to like send all the DSs that much information, I think, because then probably the connection wouldn't be as stable, or the game wouldn't run as well.
Take a while too, probably.
So they were running basically a bare bones version of Mario Kart, but it was still fully playable and like local multiplayer, right? So I'll be interested to see what the extent of game functionality is with this feature, but something I was absolutely not expecting them to ever bring back, and they are. So that's a big win in my book.
And then finally here I have faster storage because in my experience the original Switch had very, very slow storage. I just have mine here. I'm just messing around with it. I transferred 10 gigabytes from the expansion SD card to internal storage, and it took like 6 minutes. Now that doesn't sound like long, but that's pretty slow in terms of kind of transfer speeds nowadays.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of happy that they upgraded it. It does suck that your old SD cards won't work, but again, you're going to get a lot better performance, faster load times, faster downloading or getting graphics, textures and stuff up on your screen. So definitely needed, and I think a welcome addition. So.
And they've showed that off too. Like I remember back when the PS5 was coming out, and they were showing off like the load screens in Spider-Man on PS4 versus PS5. Yeah. PS5 was like instantaneous. Mm-hmm. Similarly for Zelda, it's for the Switch 2. They showed on the Treehouse stream comparing loading in Breath of the Wild going to the Lost Woods, which is like the most like taxing area in the game hardware wise for performance, and they showed a side-by-side comparison of the Switch trying to fast travel to there and it taking, let's say like 20 seconds, and then the Switch 2 and it took like 6 seconds. So it's a very marked improvement for load times, like you say.
Mm-hmm. I also just want to mention the design. I actually do like the design. I kind of preferred the colors in the old one. I like the more colorful look, but in terms of kind of the progression of their design, I do like the look of this one. I think it's nice, kind of like black color. I like the look of the new dock. I think the dock's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's about it.
I think the Joy-Cons being larger was a good call. The thickness, I feel like, we didn't mention this in the cons, but I feel like the thickness could have been a little bit, and then they could have bumped that battery life. I know we didn't touch on that, and like that's kind of a rabbit hole. But like,
right,
so yeah, something that they did touch on in the dev interview was not battery life, but battery size. The battery size is alleged by the devs to be 1.2, like 120% the capacity of the Switch 1 battery. Battery capacity doesn't necessarily correlate to battery life, because if it's 1.2 times the size, but the power draw on the system is like double, then the battery life is going to be shorter, right? So they didn't talk about battery life. They just said that the battery is 1.2 times the size for capacity.
Okay.
So it does have a higher capacity battery in the Switch 2.
Yeah, I saw like some people talking online about battery life, and I have no idea. Like everyone kept saying like Switch 2 battery life is worse. The Switch 2 battery life is worse, but we'll see. Like I think when this thing actually like comes out, because like God knows what like power management it's going to happen on board and things like that.
Oh, it's an NVIDIA chip again, right? Wasn't the original?
It was a modified NVIDIA chip.
I think of NVIDIA Tegra from one of the NVIDIA Shield
right?
handhelds.
Right. So it's interesting that they're with NVIDIA and Sony and Xbox are with AMD.
Timing, I think, made a big difference, because like they're trying to be backwards compatible. And like back then, the Shield, the NVIDIA Shield was like, hey, we're like gaming on the go, and it's Android, and it's, it's kind of like pushing cutting edge a little bit in that like form factor. So then Switch is like, I like that. You make us that,
What I think is interesting though is that like the Switch is getting DLSS or some version of frame generation upscaling, right? So that's an interesting thing, because on the AMD side, it's FSR, or in PlayStation's case, PSSR, which is like they're working with AMD. It's kind of a weird combo thing. But yeah, that might particularly be useful for a handheld device that has less power to actually have DLSS running on it.
I just hope devs don't start relying on it.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, I did just do a quick bit of research. So apparently this was posted recently on the Japanese website for the Nintendo Switch 2, and they do actually mention a spec sheet that does mention the battery life. They say it's approximately 2 to 6.5 hours Although they do mention that this
2 hours.
figure is just an estimate and that the battery life will vary based on the games you play as well as usage conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, because I noticed the same thing with the Switch. Like when I was playing Breath of the Wild on my first like launch day Switch, it was about 3 hours bang on of battery life. But then if I played kind of anything else, like any other game, lasted longer. Breath of the Wild was like a battery hog, but yeah, depends on the game.
Alrighty, that's about it. So overall, pretty good showing. I am actually excited. I did submit to be notified when pre-orders go up from Nintendo for the bundle with Mario Kart World, and pre-orders go up on April 9th. We'll see if I get in or not. I don't know. There was some requirements of having an account for so long and having played like 50 hours or something like that. I don't know if I've played 50 hours on my Switch, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, is it 50 hours like total?
I don't know.
Like 50 hours recently.
You were reading that last night.
It was 50. It was whatever the numbers of hours. I think it was like 50 some odd hours required by April 2nd, 2025. And then you also had to have had Nintendo Switch Online for 12 months, I think.
It's kind of funky, but like you said, right? Anti-scalper measures. So
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's like some people are like it's gatekeeping. However, it isn't because they're allowing the retailers seemingly to do what they want. So it's like, hey, if you're super dedicated, Nintendo will like give you this like anti-scalper method so you can like hopefully get in. But if you like just want to go like a parent, for example, if a parent just wants to try to get one for Christmas or something, it's like you can still go to Amazon or like Best Buy or wherever, and then they have their own policies where they'll be like, hey, sign up for here, do this and that, because each retailer, even for the Xbox, like do you remember the Xbox, Ryan, when we went to got the Xbox Series X and we like
COVID
showed up
days?
What's that?
COVID days?
Yeah, and we showed up and it was like, okay, like you guys can't stand in line because of the COVID. So it was like, here's a ticket, but you must come back at like 12 because Microsoft is like forcing us to be like, I think it was like 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. is when we could start pre-orders. And if we do anything any earlier, like, that doesn't count kind of thing. So it's like, this is like a COVID measure where it's like, here's your spot in line, Do you
remember how confused everyone was when they were like, do you want the disk drive or digital version? And we're like,
that's right.
They're not the same console. It's not like PlayStation where there's a digital and disc drive version, but yet they were telling us this, but they should have been saying Series X or S, but they were just telling us digital, and we're like, what?
No, that's the wrong way to do that.
And then we're like, digital, but like, we're hoping we're not going to get a Series S digital version or something that we didn't know about.
Thankfully, my old ass was like, I use discs.
Yeah. I got the disc PS5. I shouldn't have, but I did. Just a minor correction, what you said before, Ryan. You said that pre-orders, like the on the Nintendo's website, would go out April 8th. It's May 8th. The first batch of invitations for the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders from Nintendo's website will go out May 8th, 2025.
May, not April?
Yeah, May.
So what's the April date?
April, I believe, was what
other retailers
GameStop and Amazon said.
And it's April 9th for other retailers. Walmart, GameStop, and Best Buy have shared that their pre-orders go live noon Eastern time, April 9th, 2025.
Okay, so Nintendo themselves are holding theirs back until
Nintendo's
later.
Holding their back.
But the other retailers are getting it first.
Yeah. From the specific Nintendo website, to quote it, for the eligibility requirements, it says, open to Nintendo account holders in the US and Canada who are at least 18 years old. If you're eligible, an invitation email will be sent to the email address associated with your Nintendo account when it is your time for purchase. The invitation will be valid for 72 hours. Invitation emails will be prioritized on a first-come, first-served basis to registrants who have purchased a Nintendo Switch Online membership with a minimum of 12 months of paid membership and a minimum of 50 total hours of gameplay as of April 2nd, 2025.
So I'm not getting in.
So maybe you didn't have
at least not
like hours.
I don't have a paid subscription, right? For 12 months.
Well, then
what I wonder there can it be 12 months collectively, or does it have to be concurrent, or does it have to be at least 12 months and it's
7 days
now?
of the free trial is what I have.
Well, at least you tried, right?
Yeah. All right, thanks for that correction, Tim. We're going to move on to what we're playing. Wow. Keep it quick. Matt?
Why was there a delay after you said keep it quick?
Wait, what are you playing?
I have been playing Stalker 2 as per the normal. I've reached a very bad crisis state where I started getting my ass kicked by enemies burning through ammo. I then realized that my new equipment was very expensive to fix, so I'm now also broke. So I'm broke, slowly becoming penniless because I've stockpiled ammo, but those reserves are going down, and I have no money to deal with it. And if you keep using stuff until it breaks, it can break beyond repair, and then that's it. GG, that item is now gone. So not good. But I'm slowly recovering. I'm starting to do some grinding. I'm right outside of Pripyat. So I'm approaching the end of the game as far as I understand how the map works, although the map does make you backtrack a few times. But I have been through almost all of the regions of the game. I think there's like 4 or 5 left. And some of them look like they're just going to be like, you go there for story and then you leave, sort of deal. So that's where I'm at. I'm in the Red Forest. The Red Forest fucking sucks. It's really hard there and it's a total disaster. In fact, I texted you, Ryan. I sent you a picture. I was like, here we go. And I was on the border of the Red Forest. And then you read that message relatively quick and answered. And right after you answered, I was like, I'm dead. Because I was ambushed and murdered horribly. No, I'm doing, the game's really good still. I'm still hanging in. I'm starting to do a little bit more. I have to grind, but I'm starting to like push a little more toward the end whenever I can, whenever the opportunity presents itself. Also suffered from a really bad bug where there was an emission. So whenever there's an emission, you have to run for cover, and the main mission of the game becomes run to cover, and that main mission marker becomes the nearest the closest viable shelter from an emission. It kept telling me to go to a building that didn't exist until I completed the current objective of the main story that I was on, but I was in a huge gunfight. I also couldn't sprint, and so I was in a gunfight too far away from an area that didn't exist yet. That was a fucking disaster. Thankfully, I kind of like hacked my way through and found a different shelter and like triggered the mission, and then I ran back toward a shelter I knew existed. A mission happened, hid in the shelter. Thankfully that worked, but that was it was like 2-3 hours of me trying to figure out what the hell to do because I tried different shelters. I was trying a whole bunch of workarounds. Not good. Other than that, I did a little bit of Call of Duty. You and I have done some COD, Ryan. That was pretty good. And then us three, we did on stream and also off stream as well. We did some Orcs Must Die, getting some good progress on that. I've almost completed sort of the general tree for all the characters, and I have well completed now my personal tree for Vaughn, which is the character that I've been playing as. So that's been pretty good. Just upgrading a couple of last minute quote unquote traps that I have. I think just a couple more upgrades, but my primary ones are upgraded. And I think largely that's it. That's been my week.
Nice. Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a bit of Breath of the Wild multiplayer again this week. Haven't really touched Kingdom Come Deliverance in a little bit, not since last week, but I'll probably get back to it soon enough. And then the Monster Hunter title update was today, April 4th. So that was I played, I think, the majority of the new content already. So they added Mizutsune, which has become a very fan favorite monster in the series since its introduction in Generations. Which is like the bubble fox thing. And they brought back I guess it's like minor spoilers, the boss monster at the end of the low rank story in Wilds is now back for high rank, and you can do that fight now as many times as you want, whereas it was only doable once in low rank, and it didn't have any like gear or anything. The only way to fight it multiple times in the same character was to join on other people that were fighting it for their one time they get to fight it, and like supporting them, replying to their SOS flare. And now it has weapons and armor and Palico equipment and all this stuff. So that's super cool. The armor designs are awesome too, so it's super sick. They actually have a proper gathering hub now, which is fantastic. So what every other like Monster Hunter game had up to this point, although I think when World launched, it also didn't have a gathering hub off the hop. So this is not anything particularly new to the Monster Hunter series. It's also really sick. There's like you can do fishing there. There's like a new bomb bowling mini game where you roll the bomb barrels down a hill and try to hit little like pins to get points and stuff, and then you get items as a reward. There's the new cafeteria where the cats will like make you the food and stuff like we had before in previous games. It's all just very Monster Hunter. It's a very like online feeling update. It's very much the focus. And they added new, I believe, I haven't checked 100%, but I think they've added new like optional content. Obviously, there was new story content with the Zoshia hunt, and they've added a new event quest that is live right now for getting some crafting materials for making very kind of end game consumable items like max potions and stuff like that. So yeah, it's very good. The one major qualm with it is that they didn't, when you download the update and you boot the game up for the first time, it doesn't force the shaders optimization again, like every other update has and is supposed to do. And so for a lot of people, the performance post update has been really bad because it's running the new shaders without having optimized them first. So the fix that worked for me that I found on Reddit, shout out to the tech support Reddit every time, is to, if you're playing the Steam version specifically, this is the only version that's having this problem, is to go to the game in your Steam, right click it, browse local game files, and in that folder there is a cache called Shader Cache or Shader Cache 2. Different people have had different ones. Some people have had both. Either way, get rid of them or just click it, delete it, boot the game up as normal. Then it will force optimizing the game shaders, and then your game will likely run better. Some people have said it didn't help them. I don't know what's going on in those scenarios, but that's the fix that worked for me. Yeah. Hopefully they'll do a hotfix or something that's going to address that, because that's a major oversight. And
hashtag PC gaming though.
Hashtag PC gaming, and it's working okay for me. But there are a couple of known crashes. There's like a specific one for some reason. If you talk to Nata and you go to trade with one particular village, as soon as you select that menu, the game hard crashes. And then people are saying, that's fine, I don't want to talk to Nata anyway. But yeah, I don't know why it's doing that, but that is a known replicable crash. It will happen every time on like every version of the game. So I'm sure Capcom will address that at some point. But all that aside, the content that they have added is pretty sick. And the Zoshia fight is actually pretty hard. So it's like the new hardest fight in the game at this point, which isn't a high bar, but Capcom is adding harder fights. So that's pretty sick. That's what I've been doing.
Nice. Myself, mostly just been doing Assassin's Creed Shadows, playing that. I love it. It's great. It's a good Assassin's Creed game. At this point, I don't think I like it as much as Odyssey or even Valhalla, but I do like these bigger kind of open world, larger RPG-esque Assassin's Creed games. So I'm having a good time. Game looks amazing. There's sometimes like you don't really think of it looking amazing all the time, but then there's like certain shots that you're just like, wow, this game's kind of gorgeous. There's a lot of like landscapes of trees that just look like an actual picture, and it's just it's pretty amazing sometimes. Other than that, I mean, just the usual Overwatch, Call of Duty with Matt, Orcs Must Die with the stream. We should get back to Monster Hunter though, because I paid $80 for that. I'd like to play it a little bit more.
Nintendo is ashamed. It should be at least 10 more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So hopefully we can get back to that. And I might pre-order a Switch too, even though I am not the biggest Nintendo fan and I don't play any of the consoles that I have bought from them in the past.
That's
but
crazy.
It's now a tradition for me to buy these consoles.
Man, I wish I had your disposable income. What the fuck?
Tim, were you in like the Discord or the party or whatever it was when Ryan was going to pre-order his Switch? I might have even been the Switch Lite.
No, I wasn't there for that.
Everyone in there was like, "Don't fucking do it,
because you're not going to use it.
You're not going to use it." And like you were asking us, Ryan, like, should I buy this?
I told you to tell me not to buy it because I knew the right answer.
We were yelling it. The
right answer was don't buy it. Yeah,
we did. Yeah. And then literally, like after we were all done yelling and the dust had settled, you're just like, I bought it. By the way, it's like for fun.
I get excited. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what you need to do is you need to put it in your cart. You need to be ready to buy it, like purchase it in that moment, and then you put your phone down and you go to sleep and you wake up the next day. And if you're still excited, then click purchase.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
I also heard a strategy where you take the cash out of the bank and you think about, do I want to give this much cash away?
It's easier when it's just a number on a screen, right?
Yeah. True.
All right. All right. Thank you guys. It was a big, long episode. Lots to talk about. Tim, where can people watch you doing your Breath of the Wild thing?
I'm speculating more about the Switch 2.
Was it?
Breath of the Wild, yeah. Twitch.tv/the sidetrack. I've been doing kind of a variety of stuff, like you said, doing Orcs Must Die. Been doing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Probably going to be doing a bit of Monster Hunter stuff for a while.
Porno games on Steam. Yep.
Porno games on Steam. Top porno game on Steam. We're always checking that out for sure. Yeah, it's been a good mix, and there's lots of doing lots of collabs and stuff recently. So there's good multiplayer, fun too, and Havoc to get invested in if that's your bag. If not, well then you can watch twitch.tv/DayOnePatchMedia, where Matt and Ryan and myself are sometimes playing co-op games too.
And in case you were interested, the porno game that's on that's trending on Steam right now is Project Passion Season 2.
Nice.
So you don't want to miss out on Season 2.
Yeah, fucking Season 2.
Season 1 was a bit of a flop, so I'm excited about Season 2, yeah.
And let me tell you, I'm looking through the description. They got GIFs in the description. That should tell you all you need to know about what's happening in this game. Oh my lordy. Oh.
All right. We need to end this.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
Hey, yo, peace.